drinking water now. Not really working, but now because it's water, so it's water.
All right, so good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you guys for coming. For those of you who don't know, my name is Fitz and I'm president of the Journal Square Community Association. And in case you're not aware of our mission, it's a powerful one. We are all about making Journal Square a cleaner, greener, safer community. And to that end, we work with anyone and everyone who helps us move that mission forward, be it aspiring candidates, elected officials, agency heads. Tonight we're hosting one of them. Businesses, nonprofits, community leaders, anyone and everyone. And so if you are interested in helping us pursue this mission, please feel free to connect with me or with Margaret, who's going around. She's a board member as well, and let us know, whether you're interested, so that we can let you know how you can get involved. Before I get into tonight's agenda, I want to make a few announcements, just so I don't forget. One, so we have a few upcoming events that are very important. The first one is Wednesday, July 22nd. There's a film screening of The Sacrifice Zone. And that's going to be followed by a discussion on the proposed Van Kuren waste transfer facility. For those who don't know, this is a proposal to build a waste transfer facility on Van Kuren Avenue, which is like basically down the block more or less. It's very, very close to here, and it does have a lot of implications. JSQCA drafted a letter, we submitted it weeks ago to the governor, elected officials, local officials, expressing our opposition, and so the JSQCA is firmly opposed to this. And so this film screening will take place at the VIP Diner, 175 6th Avenue, and then after there's going to be a discussion not only on the broader implications of the facility itself in the community, but just Jersey City in general, and the potential environmental impacts that this is going to have in the community. So that'll be, that event is being hosted by the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance and Sustainable JC. And those are both organizations that we have collaborated with and will continue to collaborate with on this issue. Monday, August 10th, we are turning 10. So JSQCA has officially turned 10. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. And it's good to see some of our original family members, and I see Bill here. So thank you, Bill, for coming. And so we're going to celebrate, big style via our summer social. And so for those who don't know, JSQCA has two social events every year, one in the summer, one in the winter. And so our summer special, we're also going to use it to celebrate our 10th anniversary. And look at the highlights, because there's a lot of good work that JSQCA has done over the years. And one, could say one of our recent accomplishments is that our current board seat councilman was my predecessor. He used to be the president of JSQCA, so we're very proud of everything Tom's doing. So that's Monday, August 10th, but it is members only. So keep that in mind. Membership is $25, and that's good for 12 months, and it's on a rotational basis. So you become a member tonight, you're set until July 13th, 2027. And so feel free to hit me up before you leave today if you're interested in the membership. Happy to answer any questions you may have. And then the last event that I put here is Wednesday, August 12th. Family Promise of Hudson County is hosting its 4th Mark the Moment Awards to honor advocates and frontline workers expanding access to safe and stable housing in Hudson County. That's going to be in Grace Church, Van Forest, on Wednesday, August 12th. All of these events are in our in our Facebook account. And so you don't need to remember all these dates, just visit our Facebook page at JSQCA, and you'll see all of these events listed there. And then the last thing I'll mention is regarding our socials, YouTube. You can follow us at the JSQCA. Please subscribe if you haven't. And Instagram at JSQCA. So anything and everything that we're doing will always be posted on JSQCA, on Instagram, as well as Facebook. So, with that said, tonight's, yeah? So what? Please.
Everybody knows me. I'm Margaret. I'm one of the board members here. So something exciting about that venturing event is that there will be dinner before that, if we haven't done that. So it'll be dinner as well as the film, as well as a complete overview by the Environmental Protection Alliance. And that is co-sponsored by the Bergen Arches Preservation Coalition, as well as Minuteman Press, who does all the printing for us. Which is wonderful. And I just want to take a moment to thank our beautiful host here, the Hudson County Community College, which has been our partner for a couple of years now, right? And this is where we'll have our beautiful social. They open up the doors in the back, and it's just a great opportunity. Again, it is for members only. For $25, we'll get you a whole year of fun here and networking. I also want to mention that we do have business membership here. There are, a lot of businesses are closing, but surprisingly, a lot of businesses are opening. I mean, every block that I go by has almost 2 new businesses. So if you're a new business, please consider joining us. It's $100 for the whole year. We do give you an opportunity to highlight your business, which is really important if you're new to the neighborhood. And you get a 20-minute spot, at every meeting. And also you get advertised in all of our social media, right? Newsletter. Okay. Well, we're working our way up. It's a process. But no, it's a great way to get visibility. So please consider joining if you are a business as well. Thank you again, Hudson County Community College, for hosting us.
Thank you, Margaret. And the last thing I'll mention regarding membership, besides the summer social, is we do have members-only events. This past March, we hosted the mayor, and in April, we hosted Councilman Zuppa. And so when we have elected officials, this year we started to make them members-only so that you get to hear directly in a more intimate setting, from your elected officials, and they answer your questions. And so consider joining us, because that's also part of the perk. Okay. Those are all of the announcements. And so for tonight's agenda, we have a goodie. So we're going to welcome Director of Forestry Michael DiCiancia to talk about urban tree canopy and also General Square. I think we can all agree that we need more trees in this community. And so we're going to discuss, what does the Division of Forestry do? What is their mission? How do they interact with the community? How can we interact with them? And we're going to open it up for questions so that Director DiCiancia can answer them directly. And then the second half is going to be with Councilman Zuppa, who's going to talk to us about the budget. Where are we with that? What's the deal with the tax increase? Like, what's the next step? What does that mean for us, in the community? And so that'll be in the second part of the agenda. Hudson County has graciously extended our reservation to 9:30, and so we're going to have even more time with the councilman. So yeah, I think it's going to be fun. And so with that said, Director DiCiancia, would you mind joining me up here? A big hand of applause, please. Let me see what's possible. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. Is it possible to just speak? Okay, why don't we do that? Okay, let's make it informal. How about just that? It was a deck that unfortunately we can use this one. All right, so apologies for that. Director DiCiancia had a deck that unfortunately we won't be able to show, but I'll find a way for us to share that via our socials, and so I'll connect with you, and we can, I can get the link for it afterwards. Great, apologies.
So you get a really long Q&A.
Yeah. So, hello. Okay, I gotta just put this. Make sure it's closed. So I do have a few questions that I wanted to kick things off with, and then we'll basically open it up to the audience. And so, Director DiCiancia, for those of us who may not be familiar with your department and your agency, can you tell us a little bit about the Division of Forestry? What does it do, and why is it so important to Jersey City's neighborhoods?
Sure. So as of 2022, the Division of Forestry was separated from the Parks Department. That was in June of 22. I was hired in August. So before that, the Division of Parks and Forestry were in the DPW, which is the Department of Public Works. After that, Parks was separated into the Department of Recreation and Forestry State Public Works. Our primary mission is the maintenance of trees, mature trees in the city. So that's anything, we define it as anything beyond 2 years, thank you. Anything beyond 2 years in age. And the reason why we define it that way is because the Division of Sustainability, which is in the Infrastructure Department, plants the trees, and then after 2 years, they lose their maintenance guarantee, so then it becomes the city's property. So we do pruning and removal primarily, disease, we inspect for disease and identify disease, and then we also handle all the permits and plan review that comes through the city, which again, this is like a relatively new process because forestry's only existed since August of 2022, but we do that as well, and then if there's enforcement, so you notice vandalism or things like that, we don't actually have enforcement capability, but we are the only division in the city that understands anything about trees. So typically, we're consulted when it comes for code compliance to issue summonses and things of that nature for our code enforcement. So that's in a nutshell what we do.
Okay, thank you. One question that we often hear is, how does the city decide where trees, should be planted? And so, can you walk us through that process and the factors that get considered? Who makes the final call? Is that your call? Is that your team? Is that the mayor?
No, so I technically can't answer that, but I can go into it. So, like I had said, the Division of Sustainability, which is an infrastructure, they manage the standard planting contract that the city has. So if you think about it from like a bureaucratic standpoint, that's infrastructure installation, which is infrastructure, and we are infrastructure maintenance, which is the Department of Public Works. So we actually don't have any role within planting really whatsoever. So sustainability, which is the Division of Infrastructure, has an arborist on staff and handle all planting requests that come in from the public. They go out and inspect and make sure that the planting sites that are requested meet the forestry standards, and if they have money to plant, they do that.
Thank you for that clarification. As we can all see, Journal Square is a dense, rapidly developing neighborhood. And so from your vantage point, from your perspective in your role, what are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities for expanding tree canopy in this community?
So, like you had pointed out, Journal Square is very dense, so it's not necessarily the easiest thing to plant here. Really, when it comes to the city planting, the biggest thing would be budgeting, so making sure that they're funding the people that do the planting. And then before I worked in Jersey City, I was the street tree planting forester in Manhattan for the New York City Parks Department. And Manhattan is the hardest borough to plant in for the same reasons, because it's the most densely populated and it's the most urban. A big thing that we had was funding for tree guards, and also we got what they call participatory budgeting, which was each of the council people from Manhattan put money in based upon what their residents wanted. There was a certain allocation of funds that went to whatever the residents wanted, and a lot of times we got budgeting specifically for tree guards. So in Manhattan, we had a lot of money for tree guards, and I think in Journal Square, that would be very beneficial as well, because you can plant, like I know they planted a bunch of trees on Tunnelly Avenue, but Tunnelly Avenue is a major for trucking, going down to like 1 to 9 and that nature. So there were a few tree guards that were installed right on Tunnelly and JFK. And those trees are still alive, thank God. But further down, they recently planted trees there that was not budgeting for tree guards. So I would like to see how that success happens over time in terms of their survival. But I know tree guards, there's been studies done by Columbia University that have shown that that expands the survivability of trees exponentially. And tree guards, like the way our spec has it, they're solid steel, like 2-inch posts, and they actually survive the tree a lot of times because they're such intense infrastructure. So funding that would be very beneficial if you want to see in tough areas trees survive.
Thank you. And I believe in front of, Bergen Academy, 80 Bergen, in front of that building, I think that tree has like a like, I don't know if it's an X or just like a black mark. What does that mean?
Are you talking about the oak tree that was planted? Yeah, so that was planted by engineering on an engineering project, and when they installed it improperly, and they damaged it, and engineering should have had it replaced on the 2-year guarantee, but they didn't. And now we're past that, so that tree is just going to exist now. And so that tree is just there, and they girdled it because instead of using a crane like they should have, they used a backhoe excavator, and they damaged the bark when they put it in the ground.
Okay. Okay.
The person that ran engineering at the time told me they were going to plant it on X date, and then they planted it like 3 days earlier. So I was not present when they planted it, but I saw pictures that were in the newspaper, and I can tell you that that was not the right way to plant it.
Understood. Okay. I live in front of that tree, so this is good intel for me. I'm seeing a lot of questions popping up on
What I will say about that tree is that I would have expected it to die, but it didn't. And we recently pruned it because it was out of the guarantee date. So we said, you know what, why don't we take the deadwood out of it? And it actually looks like it's doing pretty well, all things considered. So I think it will survive, but it's going to look ugly for like 3 to 5 years. And we'll keep maintaining it now that it's forestry's responsibility. But yeah, it should have been replaced when it was put in there properly.
Well, thank you for doing the best that you guys can through the circumstances. And so I have one more from my end. There's quite a few that I already see on YouTube. And so for those of you here, if you guys want to start lining up behind that mic, feel free to do so. Just make sure that the little light is green. I think it's red right now. And that way, that'll confirm that it's on. Okay, so on my end, the last question I'll have for now, because I do have other ones. For residents who want to make Journal Square greener, what are some practical ways that they can work with the Forestry Division or support the city's efforts?
So forestry can't actually make anything greener other than maintaining the existing canopy. So if you were to, I would say a good way to reach out would be if you see vandalism or you see any problems with the trees in terms of dead wood or anything that you consider hazardous, reach out to forestry. We can investigate if it happens to be a vandalism issue, and we'll reach out to code compliance. Or if it's just a tree care issue for a mature tree, we can deal with that. But in terms of expanding green space, that would have to be the Division of Sustainability. And right now, as I understand it, they're not being funded at all. So I would say reach out to your council person to tell them that you think funding that and making sure that that's in the budget is important to you, so that they consider that when they're looking at passing budget issue.
Thank you. Why don't we go with you first, yeah?
Hi, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Press that button, and it should turn to green. There we go. It should be good.
Hi, thanks for joining us. So, there is a lot of development around the neighborhood, and it's always nice to see street trees be planted in front of the new developments. It's really disheartening to see sometimes the caliper size and just generally what is considered and accepted. So yeah, sometimes they're really terrible street trees. Are there any standards that the developers need to follow? And is there any way that those standards can be enforced?
So yes, there are standards that they should be following, and so it depends, right? Like, so a lot of these developments, like, they might put the tree in the ground tomorrow, but their plan might have been approved 6 years ago. And so in those cases, if it was something that zoning and planning had approved and never consulted with anybody that was looking at the forestry standards, you end up getting a lackluster product like what you're talking about. And then it's retroactive in terms of trying to correct that. So whether it be someone reaches out to me and I reach out to the planning and zoning and say, hey, can you provide me the plan that was approved? And then maybe it was approved, maybe it wasn't. And if it wasn't, then it goes to code compliance. And then code compliance has to issue a summons. Ultimately, you want to catch that before they get a CO. So I would say that plans that are, we've been involved in the permanent plan review process for the last year and a half, but a lot of, like I said, a lot of these projects were approved years before we were even in place as a division. So it really depends. So if you notice something that you feel like is not correct, you can reach out to us directly, and then we have to kick it to the relevant parties that would enforce that. Again, it would be planning and zoning if they haven't gotten a CO yet, or if it's after that, it would be code compliance. But if they had approved something that they shouldn't have approved, it's hard to get correction at that point, to be honest with you. But I would say reach out to us directly, and at least then we can reach out to the local parties and try to get it corrected.
Thank you very much.
And just two quick questions. When you say reach out to us, is there a number? Is it CP Fix? Is it an
So
email?
there is, if you go online and you search Jersey City Division of Forestry, we have a webpage. There is a number on there. It's 201-547-5964. That's our office number. CP Fix also works. But again, like, we're kind of an intermediary with the way that the city's set up. Is like enforcement only happens through code compliance, or if it's before a CO, I can reach out to planning and zoning. So you reach out to us, and then we're kind of directed to different people. And I don't think zoning or planning is on CP Fix.
Thank you for that. Good.
Yeah. Mike, I have several questions, but all pretty short, I think. First of all, I know you said that it's sustainability that plants the new trees. I know that 5-6 years ago, the city was planning to plant about 400 or 500 trees a year. Has it been able to do that? And do you know what the plan is for this year?
I couldn't say assertively that they have or they haven't, because that doesn't go through my division, but I would say like the last year and a half at least. I know that sustainability has been funding themselves through grants through the federal government and the state government. So I don't think the city's been budgeting for that. I know that prior to that, the city's budget, again, I've been with the city about 3.5 years now. Prior to that, the city's budget was $500,000, but the average cost of planting is about $3,000 per tree. So if you do the math, you don't.
That's
want
167.
Right. So I would say no, if I had to weigh in.
And do you talk to the arborist over in sustainability?
Yes. Yeah, so the director of sustainability, her name is Amanda. I used to work with her in New York City. She was the sidewalk forester, so when you had sidewalk uplift from trees, she dealt with the contracts that mitigated that. And then prior to that, we both worked at Davy, which is a private tree company in Brooklyn, and I worked in Massachusetts as well. So I've worked with Amanda back and forth, like we've kind of been following each other in different places.
Okay.
But they also have an arborist on staff that manages the planting contract in Carlos, and I went to Rutgers with Carlos. So I'm close with sustainability, yes.
Okay, good. You mentioned the importance of tree guards. How much do they cost on
They're
average?
expensive. So if you follow the city spec, for a full-size tree guard, which our standard tree bed size is 10 foot by 5 foot, and you want to have a tree guard that's 3 sides and it's a foot off the curb, so you end up looking at like 18 linear feet of steel. They end up being about $2,000, give or take. So they're expensive. But again, like I said, they outlast the tree in a lot of cases, so like they're good infrastructure. And if you look at Montauk Avenue right off of JFK, where they load into the, what was that, college store or
What, by the McDonald's or?
no, across the church.
Oh, at the corner?
Yeah. It's like a thrift store or something.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go there, there's tree guards that the city installed there on 3 trees, and there's large trucks that offload their goods into that thrift store. The only reason those trees are so alive is because of tree guards.
Take a look.
Do you know if the city mandates that with the new developments, when developers are planting trees, that they have to
There
cut
have been
tree guards?
instances where if I'm involved in the plan review, I have mandated it because it's a major avenue.
Right.
But if it was a plan that was approved 3 or more years ago, then I wasn't involved in it, and I couldn't tell you.
So sorry. If you could get closer to the mic.
Sure. And just my last question, how many people in your division? Is it just you, or do you have?
No, so there's 9 total people. One's a clerk. We have 4 laborers. We have 2 people that are their title is tree maintenance worker, and we have 1 other person who's a certified arborist. They're a tree superintendent. We used to have another certified arborist, but he left to go to work in Brooklyn Botanical Garden. So we've been trying to fulfill his position. Our goal for that was a permanent plan review, which is what we're talking a lot about. That's really a full-time job, and it would be we'd be much better at it if we had someone that was focused on it full-time. But this kind of rolled into the same time that we're going through this budget crisis right now.
And you said that position would be plan and review?
Permanent plan review is what I call it. The title is tree maintenance supervisor. We were gonna take the arborist in Newark, the head arborist in Newark was gonna come work with us. But the first offer that the city sent out was like the lower end of the rung, which was
Right.
frankly insulting to him. So I advocated that they raise it, but again, given our budget crisis right now, I don't know if they're going to do that. So hopefully they will.
Thank you very much.
Mary, if I could just get a quick question. Yeah. Okay, so, from you two, first one, Jersey City has minimum tree pit size requirements. Where do those requirements originate? If they are locally established, is there flexibility to revisit them?
So the minimum tree bed requirements are 25 square foot. If I had to guess where they got them from originally, I would say they probably stole them from New York City, because the specs mimic what I was used to when I worked in New York City. I don't know what you mean by revisit them. Do you want them to be smaller or bigger? So like our standard tree bed size is 10 foot by 5 foot, which is 50 square foot. I think that that's appropriate and adequate in most cases, but I'm open to hearing what the person thinks.
Yeah, I actually should have kept reading that. So she went on to say, many of the beautiful tree-lined streets in downtown Jersey City appear to have smaller tree pits, yet the trees seem to be thriving, and I personally want fewer restrictions on our lacking tree canopy.
Well, so I don't think like the bigger beds restrict tree planting. I think that developers either don't follow it or are following an older standard, and I think that the city itself has not planted much because it hasn't had a budget for it. I don't think that you would, so like you're not like, you have to have the 10 by 5, that's our goal, that's what we aim for, but the minimum is 24 square foot, so if it's an 8 by 3 or a 6 by 4 or 5 by 5, that would be enough, but you want bigger is better, because what you don't talk about when you talk about the trees downtown is when they put the sidewalk and you gotta cut the roots, or when they don't have an adequate root space and then a storm comes and they fall over. So that's why we want to get a tree bed, and it's better for the tree, and it's also a permeable space requirement that the city benefits from, because you get more water going into the ground that way rather than infiltrating the stormwater system. So that's why that's what we'll be trying to get.
Thank you. And then I'll have one more, and then I'll go to you, Mary. You've hinted at this question actually in a few different ways, but it's, how has the city's current budget situation affected the Division of Forestry staffing, operations, or ability to plant and maintain trees? And so I know you mentioned the Newark arborist and sort of what happened there.
So, yeah, I can go into this. So we were told when Mayor Solomon came in and there was a new director of DPW, I had put in budget requests for 2026, which included, I wanted a new tree climber, I wanted a replacement for a permanent plan review forester, and I had asked for someone to do young tree training, which I can get into. My slideshow gets into that heavily, because I think it's very important. And then another laborer, and the goal with all of that was I wanted to do young tree training, which is its own program. I wanted to have someone do a permanent plan review full-time because it's a full-time job. And then I wanted a climber and a laborer because I wanted to expand to a second in-house crew. And we had a second bucket truck, but it was too big, and it had pulled down lines and it actually had gotten shocked during work, and so it needed to go out for a test because it wasn't safe to operate around power lines. So the way that the budget thing has kind of taken place is, like, I was told originally I could either have the climber or I could have a laborer and a young tree trainer, because it was 2 cheaper positions or 1 expensive position. So I chose the 2 cheaper positions because I felt like we could expand more with that. When I had interviewed and selected a climber, a laborer, that was recently denied. So I don't know where we're at in that process, but it doesn't look like that's being approved anymore. And replacement for our permanent plan review forester, like I said, we were looking to hire the head arborist in Newark to do that. And they, instead of going with the higher end of the range, like I had recommended given his credentials, they went with the lower end of the range, and so he denied that offer. And so I don't know where we're at with that anymore as well. The truck that had been shocked, they sent it to be tested. They found that it needed to be repaired. Because it was too large, I said, well, why don't we try to sell that and get a more appropriate sized truck? And the company that we work with basically is not offering anything adequate for the truck that we're looking to get rid of. So we're probably not gonna get a second truck. And because we're not getting the laborer or the young tree trainer, the likelihood of expanding to a second crew is non-existent right now. So we're gonna focus on the one that we have. Simultaneously, it had been reported in the Jersey City Times, and again, I don't know where we're at with this officially, but Jersey City Times said that they're cutting the tree pruning contract, which is a contract that we had for a private vendor that we had coming in and supplementing our work as well. So if that gets cut and we're not getting a second bucket truck and we're not getting any of the hires we looked at, we're pretty much focused on one crew.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for the detail there. Wow. Okay. Mary, why don't you take us next?
Okay. I hate these things. Oh, well. So I just want to remark about the tree pit size because, and that's not my question. The person who was questioning about the tree pits, I think what they're referring to is the tree pits that the city built on residential streets are almost all 4x5. Almost all. And then up on 139, they planted trees, I think, last year. And I think those pits are 2x3. Very, very small. So when we were told they had to be, what was it, 5x10?
10 by 5 is the standard.
10 by 5. Like
The
none of our trees.
139 is planted by the state. So-
Yeah, I figured. But like none of our tree pits are standard.
Right.
And I guess it was wrongly interpreted that we could no longer use those tree pits.
They would just have to be expanded.
Yeah.
And in cases where they could be, they would be, but if they couldn't be, they wouldn't be.
So I want to know, I actually asked Renee this question the other day about who's responsible for Olds developer trees. And you said at the beginning of the meeting, tree more than 2 years old. So my building has trees that are 20 years old, and there's never been any maintenance on them at all. And they're like in really, really bad shape right now. They definitely need pruning. One of them died about 5 years ago. We asked to have it removed. Nobody came to remove it, so Lisa Rodriguez and I kicked it into the street and broke it up. It was a great amusement to Lisa's kids, Canco legend. But like the tree that's right by our driveway, half of it is dead. It has 2 main stems, and exactly half of it is dead. So I think we probably have 20-some trees on both sides of the street, and they just need work. As well, the new trees that they're planting on Tunnelly Avenue going down toward Kennedy Boulevard really look great. I mean, except for the one that Vandal chopped up. But we'd like to have some on our side of our end of the street, and that's, we've been asking for them for 15 years.
So what's the question?
I just want to know, how do we get on the tree maintenance list?
So you could request pruning it anywhere, but to be frank with you, if it's small enough where you could kick it into the street, it's not reaching the level of
Well,
like.
that was 5 years ago,
Well, like I said.
and it was
yeah,
dead.
So it depends, like I said, you can put in a request for it, we can take a look at it.
I mean, like, we have branches that are broken off and are jagged and sticking out. I mean, most of them are too high for somebody to actually hit their head on, but some of them aren't. You know, they just need all that dead wood trimmed out of them.
Yeah, no, you could put in a request for it, absolutely, but like I was saying, like, I tried to hire a young tree trainer, which would be anything 8 inches an hour or less, so that's about strong about it. If it's smaller than that, it's not gonna ever reach the priority of my one group dealing with it.
Okay, so can we trim them ourselves?
No, that would be a violation of city code. If you wanna ask for a permit to permit yourself, you could. And I
Yeah.
could prove that for you if it made sense, but the state also has laws where you have to use an LTE or an LTCO, which is an acronym the state uses, which means licensed tree care expert or licensed tree care operator. And that's a whole process, so like, it wouldn't be called for a resident to do that on the tree.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me take a couple from YouTube, and then I'll go to you, Margaret. All right, from YouTube. The city adopted an ordinance requiring notice before the removal of more than one tree. How is that notification requirement implemented in practice, and how is compliance monitored?
So that's required for removals by permit, and it's only for, if it's a city tree, it's 2 or more trees, they require it, and it's for adjacent property owners. And if it's a private property tree, which we've adopted since April, that would be all real property owners adjacent to the property the trees being removed.
Thanks. And this question will take us back a bit to more towards the beginning, where you laid out the difference between forestry and how you guys don't decide, where the trees go, and what the different sort of department roles are in this process. So this next question, when identifying locations for new street trees, what are the respective roles of the Department of Public Works and the Division of Forestry? Who determines whether the location is suitable?
We have no role in that whatsoever. That's sustainability and it's based on the forestry standards. I guess you could say we tangentially have a role because I am a large part of writing the forestry standards, at least the new ones. But the spec that they took for the forestry standards, it mimics what New York City had. So that hasn't been changed.
Thank you.
Just a quickie circling back to the, I don't know,
It's not loud enough.
Yeah.
Make sure it's on.
Okay, here we go. Just a quickie circling back to the Tenley Avenue trees and the guardrails. So right there at that intersection, the Deals Place, where you're all correct, they are not there. So one of those guardrails is bent over, kind of like, pretty badly. So do you take care of fixing that? And also, there actually is one dead tree there. Do you take care of that as well?
So if the tree guard is destroyed, we could remove it because it would not be safe. If it's like bent and you feel like it could be a hazard, we would remove it. We wouldn't replace it or repair it. Sustainability pays for those, and then they're under the 2-year guarantee. They maintain it, and then after that, it's released, and then it would be, once it's destroyed, we take it out. If there's a dead tree there, again, if it's less than 8 inches caliper, we typically leave it for them because it's free for them to replace it when they plant the tree. But given budget constraints now, I don't know when that would be. So I could remove a tree that small for the fact that it's an eyesore, but again, it wouldn't be dangerous, so it would be something that would be a low priority.
And no one gets fined for destroying these guardrails that are expensive
If
and
you
not
could
moving?
prove it and then you had video or some kind of evidence to who ran into it, yeah, absolutely they would.
Okay,
But
And-
that's almost never.
yeah, it's hard to do that, yeah. Follow-up question, right in that same intersection, I know you're familiar with the triangle, the red triangle, where the developer put some trees and they all died, the trees and the plant died. Then they put more plants and they pretty much got scorched to death as well. So where is the developer's role in this? Because it was guarded all around, can't imagine how they would water it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so the only thing I can speak to would be the trees themselves. The trees that they did replace with them are alive now, currently. That they, when they first put them in, they put in, I don't even know what you would call it, it was like not that thick, which is the standard. I think they were dead when they went in, it was a construction field. So they totally violated all the standards. So when it was reported to us, we were able to get code compliance to go out and issue summonses, and then they did replace them. I think you're talking about maybe the boxwoods or whatever kind of shrubbery they placed that had been scorched. We don't oversee that at all. It's only the trees that we would ever even look at.
And to that same point, on a previous conversation, you kind of alluded to the possibility of at some point, maybe developing a plan where the developer could kind of make an arrangement with the city so that they could pay for the maintenance, because the city's more well equipped for that.
So technically, they're supposed to be responsible for 2 years of maintenance now. What I was talking about was, we have a tree fund now, which is like an account that was set up. It was something recommended by the state DEP because they, back in April, like I said before, for the stormwater maintenance, the DEP recommended that all municipalities adopt a private property ordinance, which meant that if you wanted to remove a tree even on private property, you had to get a permit. And if it was a healthy tree that didn't need to be removed, you had to still give restitution to the municipality for either planting or payment. And so in Jersey City, I was saying it made more sense for the developers to just pay into the tree fund and let the city plant it on their contract, because then you could ensure that the city was doing it. There was one place you could go to ask questions. The contractor that was working for the city had an invested interest to do it properly, and the city could oversee it with its staff, rather than right now, the developer does it, maybe they talk to planning, maybe they talk to zoning, then I get a call when there's a problem, then I send code compliance. You can see there's a lot of moving parts that doesn't make that efficient. So I would advocate for the fact that developers should pay into the tree fund and then let the Division of Sustainability plant that on the contract.
Thank you. We've had a few questions from internally about that tree fund. So when the developer determines that a tree has to be removed, or even, before they go into the development. And they pay a certain amount of money sometimes, and it theoretically, I guess, goes into the tree fund. But where does that tree actually get kind of put in? Is it in the same ward, the same area?
So
or-
in order for that to happen, they have to get a permit first, and they have to show that it's absolutely a requirement that they couldn't possibly work around it for their development. This has only been in place since April of last year. The money has not been taken out yet by sustainability. They're looking to take it out in the fall for the first time ever. So right now, there's a little over $200,000 in that account, but it hasn't been touched yet. So to tell you where the tree goes specifically, I couldn't answer that. However, when we do receive a permit and a tree does come out, we survey it in forestry and we recommend where it should go back based upon as close as possible to the property where the tree came out. And this isn't just developers, but it could be vandalism, it could be somebody removed the tree in their backyard because they did, for whatever reason, maybe it was dead or whatever, and so they put money into the account as well, and so the goal was to plant those trees as close as possible to where the tree came out.
So with the developers, it seems to be a legitimate reason they need to remove because to put the utility lines underneath the survey. But the issue with some people is, for here in Ward C, other wards have a little bit more greenery. We have very limited greenery here. And so when a tree is either removed or denied, in some way, there is a concern about how do we get that tree, replaced in this area where we really do need it, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and I agree with you, and when Amanda does start taking that money out, it's gonna be as close as possible to where it came out, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, so I couldn't tell you that it does, but it's supposed to be in the fall, you're gonna see that in practice for the first time.
So can a ward or someone put in an application, or how do we flag it for,
So, well, I mean, you could reach out and ask about it, but it's more so that let's say, for example, we had a tank removal, an oil tank underground that was removed at 18 Concord. That tree that they removed was worth, we ended up appraising that at 6 trees. So we would start at 18 Concord and then walk the block and try to find spaces that would be adequate for new trees, based on our standards. So that would be totally internal, but if you were aware of something or you had a question about something, you could reach out and we could talk about it.
and we will reach out to your department specifically?
If it's a permit, then yes.
Okay,
So
and the last
permit
question.
approval for development would be through forestry.
The last question that came up internally is, the trees along JF Kennedy, is there a distinction between where you do the trees and county does them? or-
Yes, we don't do anything on JFK, that's the county's responsibility, so they have their own standards in terms of development, and they also do all the maintenance on JFK.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. And just because we started to talk about the developers, the construction and planning chair, Chris, JSQ construction and planning chair, I had a few questions. You already answered one of them, but it's good to hear that the idea is that the funds are used in the areas closest to where the development is. That makes sense, because we feel like JSQ is missing out, on trees, even though we have all of these developments, Okay, so he had another question. Countless recently completed buildings have empty tree pits or new trees that have died. 501 Summit, for example, which opened this year and is lined with dead trees. What enforcement is being done to ensure trees are maintained and replaced when needed so that the community benefits from the trees required by the forestry standards?
So any development that gets done, the enforcement is through the CO from planning and zoning, and then after that it would be co-compliance. So if you notice an issue with trees, you can report it to me, but I'm basically going to be beholden to co-compliance issuing a summons or planning and zoning being able to withhold the CO. Now, if they've already issued the CO, then it goes to co-compliance, and then you have to hope that they issue it and that they could actually enforce that they changed that.
And when you say CO, can you remind us again what?
Yeah, certificate of occupancy, it's basically when the planning and zoning folks say, yeah, your work's good, here's your ability to rent the space out now.
And then one more. There have been a few sites where mature trees have been destroyed during demolition, only to be replaced with young trees at the end of construction. The forestry standards have remedies for these actions, such as monetary actions. But I'm not sure we're doing enough to really discourage the destruction of mature trees adjacent to construction sites. Can we make payments higher?
Well, I mean, I would say that the way we appraise trees is substantial now. I don't know, you have to be specific about which trees were destroyed and what the payments were. Like, we'd have to look into that because, like I said, that tree fund has only existed since April of last year. So anything that happened before that never would have even came to us. And then the Division of Forestry has only existed since the year prior to that. So it would be a specific question about each tree. But I mean, for example, I had mentioned 18 Concord when I was answering the last question. It was like a 20-inch American sycamore. We ended up charging them 6 trees, which is 3,300 times 6. So we're talking, tens of thousands of dollars that was assessed for the value of that tree. So I don't know if the values are the issue. However, there are, of course, like big developments, like that's nothing to them necessarily. So that's why the permit process is important, because if it's something that they can preserve, we force them to. But again, that requires that this was something that took place in the last 3 years and they were forced to go through the permit process.
God, so we're limited by statutes of limitations, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, there was an issue where, I don't think it's been resolved yet, but there was a development that's taking place at 67 Lake Street, and there's a tree in the backyard on one property, and the development's happening on the other property, and they're gonna destroy the root zone. The planning board went ahead and approved that, even though, and it's like, I don't know what the planning laws are in terms of what's required in terms of letting people develop. So if the planning board determines that this is a requirement of development, then we have to permit the removal. But that's when we seek the restitution into the tree fund, which hypothetically is supposed to replace these trees, or at least, if it's a big tree, it would replace many trees to replace the big tree. So again, the tree fund's relatively new, April of last year. We've been taking money into it. We're up to over $200,000 at this point. Sustainability is looking to take those funds out and plant in the fall season coming up. It hasn't happened yet, but hypothetically, if that were to go the way it's supposed to go, which I think it will, then I would be advocating for every development to just pay into that tree fund so that the city can do that work and not have to worry about developers not doing it the right way.
Hi, my name's Steve. In terms of tree pruning, historically, as you walk around the streets, you see a lot of really badly pruned trees due to power lines. And so I assume that's all been done by PSE&G. In going forward, is there any way that you can or will be coordinating with the power company to do better pruning?
So yes and no. So yeah, the answer yes is that the previous arborist that worked for PSE&G I had a good relationship with. He recently left within the last 6 months, and they have a new arborist now, so I'm reforging that relationship. That being said, the perception of bad versus good pruning is sometimes not accurate, and there's never a good way to prune a large tree that's got 3-phase power lines going through it, but there is a right way and a wrong way. And so a lot of times people, I hear the term butchered a lot, which it looks like that, and it's not good, but there's also no way to clear 3-phase lines with large trees and without clearing up the whole center. So what I do is if somebody feels like they've had something that they don't think is right, I'm happy to meet with them, we can talk about it. But PSE&G does have a very specific, it's called directional pruning. If you look it up, you can find it online. It's part of the ANSI standards for pruning, and that's what they're allowed to do to clear power lines. So there's basically, if you have a large tree with power lines through it, you're going to get the whole center beat out, and then depending on the species, you're going to get dieback. So like maples don't compartmentalize well, so when you clear out the center of maple, you tend to get dieback in the center, and then that's very bad. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Mike, will you be involved in the decisions about what trees get planted at Courthouse Park when that happens?
I don't know. I would like, in the past, that was handled by architecture or engineering, depending on who's running the project, and it would be great if they talked to me, but also, like I had said before, infrastructure is its own department, and they have sustainability infrastructure, which has 2 certified arborists on staff, so they don't necessarily talk to me. They should, technically, because I'm supposed to be the one permitting any planting whatsoever, but to be honest with you, sometimes it doesn't happen.
And,
just like the bird in the square tree that we just talked about.
Yeah, and a question of a different nature. In your program at Rutgers, where you studied forestry, how much emphasis was there on urban forestry?
So I didn't study forestry at Rutgers, I studied ecology.
Oh,
They
okay.
recently became certified for urban forestry. They have an urban forestry club now, but I was not there when they instituted that. They're good now. At the time, to be honest with you, funny story, when I went back to, so I studied at Rutgers, then I left and I went back. And I met with the ecology school, and I met with an advisor, and I said, oh, I like trees, I'd like to get into that, and then they hooked me up with a forester, it's a biometric forester, which is somebody who does math to figure out how much biomass you could take from a forest without destroying it. And when I met with him, I said, this sounds terrible, I don't want to do this. And so I didn't want to do forestry.
Okay. But here
And then
you
I
are.
graduated, and then I got a job with Davy, and I do forestry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Curtis. Glad to see you. I'd like to know, is surveillance cameras allowed in planting trees, or somebody who owns a tree inside their houses? Is there restrictions for it? Or is there rights people who don't want to be surveillance can fight that? And another question is, say for instance, you have somebody who have a tree overlapping on their property. Are you the guys to call just in case they don't want to cut that out now?
So the first question, surveillance cameras, are you talking about like a ring camera on your property?
No, within the tree. Sometimes that
You're not
happens.
allowed, yeah, you're not technically allowed to install anything in the tree bed without a
Oh,
permit.
okay.
So if you have that, you can report it to me and then I can ask code compliance to issue a summons.
Okay. And the tree overlapping into somebody's yard, you guys take care of it, enforce that just in case you don't want to cut that down, but part of the tree
You're talking about in the backyard?
in the backyard.
No, so New Jersey state law says that once the tree crosses your property line on private property, you're responsible up to the property line. So if, like, let's say your neighbor's tree is growing into your property, you can cut it back to the fence line.
Only the branches.
Yes.
Okay. But
And
not the tree.
so, and the property owner where the tree exists is not responsible to prune it unless they want to. Or you can show that there's a just cause to prune it, and if they ignore you and something were to happen, then you could sue them and they'd be liable in court. But in New Jersey, that almost never happens because trees are kind of like considered biological and it's like an act of God when they fail. So unless you can show the tree was totally dead and you told them and they ignored you and then it fell, then you could sue them and then you'd be given recompense for whatever damages.
Thank you.
But that almost never happens.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Kind of a follow-up to your earlier question. There's a developer I live on Vroom Street, they put that giant thing up there. And there's a tree on the borderline between my friend's property and his. And they just put a new sidewalk in and it's right up to the bar. It's gotta be a 50-year-old tree. I grew up here, so it's been there forever. And now the cement, the square that it's in, it's right up against the bark of the tree. The sidewalk's gonna crack,
Right.
soon. Do you take care of that?
Take
Or,
care of what exactly?
is there someone who
If they install,
inspected the sidewalk and didn't give us that 25
if
square?
they installed the cement up to the trunk of the tree without a permit and we could show that it caused damage, then we could get code compliance to issue a summons,
Okay.
if that answers your question.
And do I have to
Could
put in a complaint?
Yeah,
Who does
you
it?
can put it in a complaint, sure, secret fix.
Okay. And do you do anything about these lantern bugs? Does the city do pesticides on your local trees?
No, so my first year that I was here, the Parks Department applied for a grant and they got it from the NJDEP, which is $15,000 to treat for spotted lanternfly. We did that, and the way we prioritized it was the smallest red maples. The reason why we did that was because the smaller the tree, the more impacted it is by the bug, and red maples are a natural host, and we consider that a valuable species. But frankly, the spotted lanternfly doesn't really harm trees that badly. It's not really that big of a deal. The problem with spotted lanternfly for the state is that it impacts hops and grapes and all kinds of commercial agriculture. So in an urban setting for trees, it's not really cost effective to do anything about them because like I said, they're not really that detrimental.
It's just a
So
pest.
yeah, exactly. It's a nuisance for the public, but for the trees itself, like there's no incidences of them killing mature native trees. They kill black walnut saplings, which we don't have, and they can kill ailanthus saplings if it's a heavy infestation, but we don't care about ailanthus either. So from a management perspective for urban forestry, it's not really something we're concerned about.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any
Right.
that we can?
So I'm gonna take a few from YouTube. I'm gonna combine these two because they're in the spirit of what you do. So if residents wanted to help increase Jersey City's tree canopy, what would you most like them to do? Are there opportunities for residents to partner with forestry? So that's on, well, I'll stop there. The second one is in a similar vein, but
So forestry does not plant trees, so you couldn't partner with us, but I would recommend partnering with the Division of Sustainability, and by partnering, I mean advocate for them to get funding through the budget, which right now is tough. But I would say call your councilman. Recommend that they consider this a priority and they make sure that sustainability has funding. Right now and for the last year, at least year and a half, sustainability has been self-funded through grants, which has been great, but that's not always going to be the case. So my stance has always been, and again, I don't plant trees, so it's my opinion, but as a Jersey City resident, I felt like the Division of Sustainability in the city in general should never rely upon outside grants to do their tree planting. They should budget something for tree planting, and then anything that they are able to get through grants should be extra and should really benefit that. And then also earlier I talked about how trying to get the developers to pay into the tree fund rather than plant themselves, and then you get a lackluster product that doesn't survive, pay into the tree fund, and so sustainability will have their budgeted planting, they'll have the tree fund planting, and they'll have whatever grants they can do, so you'll actually get trees planted properly through the city that'll be substantial. That's where I stand on that.
thank you. And then,
Can I do a follow-up on my question? If I want to get, oh, go ahead.
mind if I just do a quick one? Along the same lines of what residents can do, can residents provide funding for tree guards on their streets? Is there an application process to do that?
Yeah, so you can apply for a permit through Forestry, which is either call or email us, and then we'll guide you through that process, and you don't necessarily need to do the full, crazy spec that the city forestry standards has in terms of solid steel. We've had people do wooden tree guards, there's aluminum designs that New York City uses that are more cost effective. Anything that's gonna keep compaction down by keeping either people or pets or bikes or whatever off the tree bed is going to be beneficial, especially when the trees are younger. That's more important. So yes, you can apply for a permit, and if you could do it for free, we're happy to permit it as long as you follow the basic specs of the height, keeping a foot off the curb, and making sure that the bottom is open so that water can infiltrate into the bed.
Do you do residential tree planting? Like, do you come and cut a hole in my sidewalk?
I don't, but sustainability does.
And that's a different.
Yeah, they're in infrastructure, and you put in a request to them, but they gotta be funded.
Real quick, you mentioned you're writing new forestry standards, and I was just curious what the timeline is and when those might be adopted.
So, the Shade Tree Committee is going to start working on updating the forestry standards, but it will be within the next year. By the end of 2026, I would expect it to be completed, but that hasn't started yet. And the 2023 standards have most of the information that's relevant, and then the things that need to be updated, mostly the forestry standards, are trying to catch up with our code, Chapter 321, which is the tree code, which has been updated as of last year. So there's information that's out of date from 2023 that was updated in the code of 2025, so that would be fixed in the next updated version of the standards, which again, I would expect to be complete by the end of the year.
Let me get a couple from YouTube here, Margaret. When residents or establishments like daycares request trees from the city, how are those requests prioritized? Asking since the St. Elizabeth School has requested trees for tree guards. Thanks.
I couldn't answer that. That would be a sustainability question. I believe they answer it on a first come, first served basis, so I don't think that they prioritize schools or anything over other things. But again, if they had funding, they could make, for example, like I said, before working in Jersey City, I was the street planting forester in Manhattan. We would have mayoral projects. We would have something they called HVI5, which was Heat Vulnerability Index. So they did a metric to figure out the hottest places in Manhattan, and they prioritized trees there to a certain amount of money. Council people could put money towards participatory budget funding where they wanted trees on, let's say, Second Avenue was a big one we always did. So if the city put more money towards it, they could create priorities. But right now, I think it's just first come, first serve, and I don't think they even do that because they're been grant funded. So the grants each have their own stipulations on where you can and can't plant. So I know, for example, one of the big grants was had to be on Martin Luther King exclusively. And so they did 115 trees, and they did tree rows for all of them, and it looks great if you ever have the chance to go down Martin Luther King, start at Community Pond, go down. They planted trees in perfect tree beds, great species, tree guards, and the whole nine. But that was stipulated by the grant because that's what the grant was funded for. So that's how that gets prioritized.
I'll make a comment and then one last question and then I'll turn it over to you, moderator. So the comment, Adam and I, these are JSQ folks. Adam and I, along with members of the PASB committee, completed an inventory of trees of JFK and Journal Square. That list was shared with the county over 3 years ago. The county has been of good help. That's one of my comment, but so that you guys know that, JSQ is small but mighty, we care. The question, when a developer completes a project, who from the city is ensuring the trees planted are meeting forestry standards before COFO is granted?
I believe there's an inspector with the building folks. Do they know or care about the forestry standards? I don't know. Probably not.
Okay. Margaret.
Just following up on some of your other comments, you've mentioned how really hard your division and related divisions have been hit by the funding situation. Are you aware of any ways that we could maybe apply for any funds either on a state or federal level? Are there any grants available for that? Having Mr. Cheryl in charge of, I don't know, conservation or something?
Yeah, so I mean, like, to be totally clear, the budget thing hasn't been discerned yet. So like some of what I'm talking about, I'm like, anticipating based upon things that I've seen. I mean, I think they're going up for the vote on Wednesday on the tax increase and all that. So where the budget lands after that, I couldn't tell you. I just know that I was told in the beginning of the year, I could hire 2 positions and fill a third, and then I got denied on the 2 positions and I got the lowball offer on the third. So I'm assuming that that's our relation to the fact that the budget's not going the way that we want it to. To answer your second question, we have applied for grants for like the NJDEP and the Forest Service put out grants yearly. And in order to apply for those grants, you have to have an approved community forestry management plan, which we do. And you have to present a project that fits the criteria, which is different every year. And we have submitted one this year. We haven't heard back on it yet.
Also, there's hope. So if someone, if there were a group or, people wanted to advocate on your behalf in any of those arenas, how would that happen?
So, I mean, if you found grants that we could partner on, that would be great, or just advocating with your elected officials saying that this is an important priority that you want to make sure it's budgeted properly.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I have seen trees, trees with infestation of flying bugs and stuff like that. Would your agency enforce that to try to get that sprayed, or if somebody who owns a tree in the back who has that?
If it's on private property, we wouldn't be involved in that at all. If it's on the city street, you can ask us to, but if you're talking about spotted lanternfly, like I said before, that's not a tree pest that impacts trees heavily, so we wouldn't address that.
What about bees?
We remove bees nests, yeah. If you got a wasp, you can report it and take them out.
Thank you.
I have a question is, there's a tree that's been sitting there, I guess it's 100 years old. It's so deep rooted that it started damaging the sewer down. So we called JCMUA, they say it's not us, it's the tree. And the roots are already blocking the sewer, and guys spending almost $3,000–4,000 every year to get that cleaned. And there's no response either from JCMUA or C-Click Fix. So who's the right POC for that?
So it depends, right? So trees can't infiltrate pipes unless there's a crack or some kind of way that they can infiltrate it. Like, so you ever think about a tree in a potted plant or in a pot? It can't break it, but if there's a crack, it can grow a thin root in there and then expand. So the first step would be to clear the pipe. The second step would be to repair the pipe. Once that's done, then you wouldn't have an issue with the tree anymore.
Okay, because,
So
yeah,
who owns the pipe? Who's responsible for maintaining the pipe?
it's the city.
So then the city needs to repair the pipe.
So that's what I said, JCMUA doesn't respond and they say it's the forest department that needs to take it.
No.
So it's going back and forth almost a year and a half.
Yeah, so I can't do any concrete work, I don't have concrete vendors, I don't have anyone for that, I don't do any of that. They would have to repair their pipe first, and then you wouldn't have a problem.
So instead of going back and forth, can we bring both of you on the same table and see what we can do?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
What prevents the fund that you were talking about, the tree fund, what prevents the tree fund that developers pay in, what prevents the fund that developers pay into from being rated like the mayor just did with the open space trust fund?
Who knows? That hasn't been rated yet, so hopefully it doesn't get rated. Legally, when it was originally, it's called dedication by rider, which I don't understand what that means, but basically it's something that the DEP required that we do, and so these funds are earmarked for specific purposes. But like you said, I mean, the Open Space Trust Fund was also, and I know that there was a law passed by the state that said in emergency situations, you could access those, so, hopefully that doesn't happen. It hasn't happened yet. And like I said, as I'm aware now, sustainability is planning to, they've redone their contract that they're preparing to use those funds. So I don't see that happening, but of course it could, I suppose.
And for the interest of, full disclosure, I'm reading them as I see it, so any colorful language, it's what's in there. Can city inspectors doing the final inspection be trained on some basic forestry standards, or can forestry be part of the final sign-off process?
I would love to be. And we would love to.
Yes. Awesome. Chris?
Thank you for your good and detailed answers this evening. They've been very clear, and we appreciate that. And thank you for the concerns on the budget too. Do you find you get credit for like stormwater mitigation and preventing storm flooding, and that is a benefit to your budget?
So our tree fund is set up on the base, and the fact that we permit private property removals is based on the fact that the DEP considers stormwater important, and so they want all tier 1 municipalities to have a private property ordinance. That would be the extent to which we do get credit for that, but I don't think it's credit. I think it's just part of our role is influenced by the fact that stormwater is important to the state. If that answers your question.
Do you find that helps increase your budget, or?
No.
Okay, maybe because people don't understand it, or because it's not factored in?
I think that maybe it's a little esoteric because it's like one step removed. And also like we collect funds based on removals that are permitted because stormwater is important. So it doesn't go into our budget per se, but it goes into the city's fund, in which we hope that sustainability will be able to replace trees by planting them with that fund. And sustainability installing new trees really is more of that. We do preserve existing trees, which is, mature trees are the ones that take the most stormwater. But I don't think that there's necessarily like you're doing this work so that you get more money or anything like that.
All right, and so we have about 15 minutes left before we switch to the second part of tonight's agenda. But the next question we have here, what is the minimum distance between trees that is allowed or recommended by the city?
So the forestry standards calls for 30 foot between large maturing trees and 20 foot between smaller maturing trees.
Thank you, Margaret.
Last question. Do you presently visit schools like universities that have either environmental studies or anything on forestry, anything along those lines? And would you accept an invitation like that? If you don't currently do it, do you have the staffing to do that?
When you mean invitation, you mean like to speak or?
Yes, to speak and give a presentation, something like what you're doing now. But
Yeah, I mean, if people wanted to talk to us, we'd be happy.
raise awareness about the trees and how they affect us and, how it really happens.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, especially because I went to Rutgers and now they have an urban forestry program, it'd be great to forge relationships there. I am in communication with the head of that program, because he was a professor of mine, and I asked him questions about tree diseases and things like that, but figuring out a way to maybe, I don't know, internships or something might be interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, so I'd be open to it for sure.
Thank you.
Fitz,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot to do with the trees, but there's a lot to do with the budget too. So can we kind of wrap this up? Because this has been going on.
No, it's first half, second half, and so.
And I apologize to the young man, but people gotta leave to take the bus and everything, so.
Yeah, no, I understand.
It's good that Mike's answer is
Let's see. For the folks here, we'll take one more. We have another one here from JSQ, from YouTube. To the point about stormwater management, shouldn't MUA dedicate a portion of its water and sewer fees for more tree planting?
No comment, that's an interesting idea. I'm not opposed to it, but that seems like above my head.
Okay. In the room and over YouTube, last burning question before we switch gears here.
What is your favorite tree?
What's your favorite tree?
Joke. Crocus rubber.
What about in the city, like one that's planted, I feel like.
We have crocus rubber. There's a couple.
Where's
There's one about a half block away from City Hall.
Do you ever think about, we have a cleanup program we do every so many months. How about something about a tree hugging group or something so that we can beautify our neighborhoods or something?
Absolutely,
You know, a lot
yeah.
of people don't want it because they don't know how to take care of them or whatever,
Right.
but, you know.
Yeah, there is groups out there that do advocate for trees. There's one that has reached out to me called the Hudson County Tree Allies, and I've helped them. They're doing a pilot where they do DIY tree guards. And when they do that, I think they do cleanups in the beds. So like that's one group I know of, and then SJC, which I think you mentioned earlier, I've partnered with them to do cleanups where they've gotten volunteers from different companies to come, and then they do cleanups around, like, I know they did Van Bush Park last year. So there are groups out there that do that. I would say maybe finding one that's already kind of active might be a good way to go
I
about
just
it.
think some of the younger kids that I've seen, I mean, I'm from the General Square area. You talk about vandalizing the young trees that are trying to grow over there at Bergen Square and stuff. If they were more educated about them, they wouldn't abuse them.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Then I know that there's an educational group called Team Wilderness that they just
Okay.
partnered somehow with the city. I saw them in the park today doing cleanups and inspecting stuff. So I know that there are groups out there, and I would say, maybe finding something that's already established and trying to like team up with that's not a bad idea.
okay.
Jersey City Tree Lovers Group, it might be defunct, but that was a Facebook group.
What was that called? Jersey City Tree Lovers?
Jersey City Tree Lovers Group.
Okay, there's a Jersey City Tree Lovers group for those joining remotely. All right, and yeah, to confirm for the folks in YouTube, Michael did say that his favorite tree is the English oak. All right, well, with that, we're gonna wrap up our first half of the agenda, and so a big round of applause for Michael DiCiancia.
Hey, Fitz, could we have Michael back again?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody.
Well, basically for the second half, it's pretty much gonna be your questions, but I first just want Tom to kind of set the stage, let us know what's happened, where we're at, and what's the immediate next step. Just for those of us who are not in the weeds of what's happening with the budget, we've heard 20% tax increase, 15%, 15.5, there was a vote, there's another vote, So, Tom, basically, before I open it up to the floor, and those joining remotely, just kind of, let us know where we're at and sort of how do you see things? Like, where do we go from here?
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
It's great to be back with JSQCA, a very familiar turf. Congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. I'm probably for what, the year 7 and 8, if it's your 9 and 10?
I think so.
That's it. Well, it's amazing to see where the association started to, thank you, to where it is today, and you guys are continuing to do great work. So, all right, let's get right into it. When I was here as your president, I think most of you got the chance to know me. I'm no nonsense, and I would say my personality is, with blips here and there, but pretty steadfast. And so, I'm not easily excitable, at least in public. So this budget process has blipped a little bit here, up here, and up and down. I'm happy to talk about that. But whether you voted for me or not, what you got is someone who's going to speak truth to the power that we have in City Hall, to our mayor, and to our administration. Someone who's going to, I will not lie to you. I will tell you everything I know as I know it, and when I think about it, including with this budget, which I brought with me. It's a 106-page document, which we're a city of 300,000 people, $868 million budget. This obviously is not the budget for the city. The great work of what we're going to be doing as a council in the coming month is to go line by line through each department's spending. And the real function of the city council is to go through the budget and vote on it. what the city council has become is to respond to constituent concerns, work with resident response to get solutions. And you'll see Arjun to my right and Lupon's here somewhere too. To my left, two fantastic members of my staff working for you daily. So it's also become that, but the budget really is the home of the city council. That's where we can exercise the most influence over what happens at the city, because even though I have great relationships with our departments, and Mike, you do a fantastic job with very little resources, so I appreciate that. If you get an issue about a tree, we contact Mike, and Mike takes care of it. I cannot order him to do something, I cannot direct him, because it does not work for me as a council person, but that's why we build those relationships. So let's get right into it. So there's a lot to do. 2 weeks ago, a month ago, I was celebrating my anniversary on a beach with my wife, and I was on a Zoom call with Mayor Solomon and 2 other council people, where the mayor announced that this was a Tuesday, and so the following day, or the 2 days later, he announced a 20% tax increase. I spit out my pina colada. I wish I was kidding, I was. And I said, okay, we know the budget situation is poor, but let me see some numbers. We know that the administration has been working with Trenton to get some relief from the state, and we're grateful for that. Turned out to be a little bit over 120 million. It's $105 million loan, $15 million in grant money, and then because of the work of Senator McCurgy, we're going to be able to get, with upcoming legislation, we're going to be able to open up some money that was cordoned off from us for use, which will free up some revenue for the city. And so what the council heard at the last council meeting, the last 2 council meetings, was, okay, you must raise taxes by 20%, the state is watching. And again, those who know me and those who are getting to know me, I'm a skeptical person, trust but verify. It turns out the state was not watching at 20%, but they are watching at 15%, which is where we're at now. So, and I hosted a community meeting in Ward C, and what I heard from the majority of the residents in the room was, try to cut more spending from the budget. And when I talk about cutting spending, I'm not talking about cutting police and fire. I'm not talking about cutting or laying off the people at the I don't say the bottom, but the people that are in the trenches, doing the work day in and day out, the working families of Jersey City. I'm not scaling back some of those director salaries and increases that were given during the full years and even during this past 6 months. And that's what we haven't seen yet. So we had the caucus today. We got the memorandum of understanding from the state, which gave us 2 options. You can either the city can either have a 20% tax increase with a $105 million loan at certain terms, which are more favorable over time to the city, but obviously hurt our residents more directly immediately, or a 15% tax increase, still pay $105 million, and with terms that are not as generous, meaning we have to pay more sooner and pay back the loan quicker. I still believe a 20% increase is not realistic for the pain and suffering that our residents have. And when I publicly asked the state to consider, and they did not necessarily do, was to give us the opportunity as a city council to cut some spending, go through our budget, see where we can, as a city, feel some pain before, again, pain at the top, before we ask our residents to endure any kind of tax increase. I mean, where we're at Wednesday, we have the MOU on the agenda. The options are only 15 and 20%. I don't like having my hands tied at all without really getting a chance to go through the line by line. So again, this is not the full budget. What the council will get, and I printed this from online from the agenda, so this is publicly available, and I have exactly what you would have. But what I will get soon, hopefully in the coming days, is every department's line by line. Who gets paid what programs the city is funding, and we'll get a better sense of things there. So, I mean, that's the overview. I really just want to answer your questions. I will be as honest as possible with the information I know. If I don't know something, I'll tell you. Fair enough? All right.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that the probably number one question that we all have is, this vote on Wednesday, have you made up your mind? Do you know which way you're going to go? You're still evaluating based on the information that you're still looking at.
Yeah, great question. So the Division of Community Affairs met with Council President Ridley, Councilman Gilmore, and Councilman Navarro this morning. Not for the whole council, but I don't know why they didn't come to the caucus, but I mean, I can guess, but they didn't come, and they can't talk to more than 4 council people at a time because then we have to sunshine notice or have a public meeting. So I haven't talked to Denise yet or Rolando in depth about that conversation and what our options are. I would imagine, but haven't confirmed this, that if we do not raise taxes by at least 15%, the state will pull that loan amount, which would be devastating to the city. In terms of what the mayor talked about with layoffs and a more significant tax increase. But that again is not considering doing some of these one-time purchases.
I have a question.
Yeah, actually, if you could stand behind the mic, just because the folks from joining us online can hear you. But I know some folks have to leave a little bit earlier. Hudson County, as I said earlier, did extend just give me 1 second. Did extend our reservation, so we have an additional 30 minutes. But I know some folks need to leave a little earlier, so feel free to start lining up. And those of you joining online, you know what to do. Start putting your questions in the chat. Thanks.
Yeah, this is regarding property taxes. So when you say 15 or 20% increase, right? We're only talking about the municipality.
There you go.
Okay. So the property taxes, right? The 15 and or 20 increase or stabilizing, whatever you might, happens, is only the municipal part of it, right? Isn't there like also 2 other?
Yeah, so thanks, Franco. Your tax bill, and then Steve, if you have any follow-up, if I don't touch on answer your question. Your tax bill is 3 parts. It's the county, the Board of Education, and the city of Jersey City. You don't add all 3 together and that's your bill, so it's not a 50% tax increase if it's 15 plus, what is it, 14 plus 16? And just for the background, last year your tax increase from the county was 3%. This year I believe it's 14%. The Board of Ed has consistently raised your taxes year after year without any regard to cutting any kind of spending, which is, there's an election in November for the Board of Education, so just keep that in mind. I'm not kidding, it's serious. And you are rightfully angry at your city for our budget condition. I mean, obviously I wasn't in the council before, but I'm here now and going to make these tough decisions. But you should be equally as upset about the way things are with the Board of Education. You add them by 3, you add the 3 together, then you divide by 3. So even if, let me do some, they don't have the Board of Ed numbers, it's 14, right?
No, it's 8.
17.
17?
It's 17 and 14 for the county.
All right, so let's say it's a 10% increase from the city. If you add those 3 numbers together, that's 41 divided by 3, your tax is still 13.6. So you have a 14% tax increase.
So you're saying a 10% municipal tax?
I'm saying even if the city raised your taxes by only 10% as opposed to 15, you're still gonna see a 14% tax increase. Right, if it's 15 plus 15 plus 15, that doesn't mean it's a 45% increase. It means it's 15 plus times 3 divided by 3, which is 15.
Okay, so that's 1/3 of it.
I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying.
You clarified it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Just while there's some downtime, so I'm sure everyone heard there were 31 employees who were laid off on Friday. The city council was not consulted. We have no say, and we have no say whatsoever over hiring or firing. And again, when I talk about cutting spending, I do not mean the people who are making $44,000 and driving the senior bus.
Okay.
The mayor.
All right, this may be, this is from the.
I'm sorry, the mayor and the administration, but not the city council.
Okay. Okay, I'm a retired CPA, so I took a look at the annual financial statements for 2025, which was signed by the acting CFO as well as the RMA, which is a registered municipal account. They have licenses, okay? And I can't find $105 million worth of unpaid bills. I look at $17, $18 million of encumbrances in the general fund, another 10 in the capital fund. I look at special emergency, Fuller did bond a lot, but special emergencies are paid off over 5 years. And just recently, about an hour before I came here, I got access to the explanation of the $105 million. I see the whole 56 million there. We only owe 20 million of that. I see VIA, which is not even mentioned by the auditors, and we've been using the same auditors probably for 20 years. If it's as bad as it is, we should sue the auditors. Because there's no mention in the 2024 audit about VIA, and I scanned it, couldn't find anything, and then 2025 doesn't come out until August 31st, okay? So we paid that out of the capital fund. That's bad accounting, there's no doubt about that. So what do I see in the $105 million? $8 million for VIA. They were paid already. You know what I'm saying? What are we gonna tax people so we can give the $8 million back to the capital fund? That's nonsense. You need to move forward. I think he presented the worst case, and also severance packages, every year it's $9, $10, $11 million, all right? It's always been bonded, always. It is a structural deficit, but you're not going to get over that structural deficit unless something is done with the police overtime, which is always record numbers, but when they retire with $500,000 because they didn't take any vacation time. There's something wrong. You don't have the right systems in place, you don't have the right people observing this, but the taxpayers, why would you put the worst case scenario out there? I don't see $105 million. And then they added all this money into these various departments as unpaid. Well, they don't show up in the 17 million, I don't think, because they add up to a lot more than 17 million. And those two people put their licenses on the line, and they said there was no operating deficit for 2025. Well, according to Solomon, there was a huge deficit for 2025, right? I just don't trust the numbers. I really don't trust. I think there's a lot of double counting. He's trying to correct the ills of the past, but it's not a good time to do it. If it was handled incorrectly and VIA got charged to capital, just leave it there, all right? Don't tax us $8 million so you can replenish capital for $8 million. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of other issues too. So I don't know if the people there really truly understood. Now, granted, you have a new CFO because John Mercer retired at the end of the year, I'm sure for good reason. But they would never have signed off on that financial in March if things were as dire as the way they're being presented by Solomon. I guess that's my comment. And I would like to see a real understanding of how these numbers came about, because what I see just doesn't make sense. Or you need to call the auditors in for an explanation, because it's July. They're required by the state to have that report done by August 31st, which is a relatively new requirement. Bring them in. We haven't heard from them, right? They're just wrapping things up, and those audit reports are like 260 pages, so it's a ton of work. There's no doubt about it, a ton of work. But still, we need to hear from them too. And I just don't have the confidence that it's as bad as it really is. That's all I'm going to say. But if you want to comment, please.
You said quite a bit, okay.
Right.
All right, a couple things. On the auditor, so I reviewed the 2024 report as well. They did warn the prior administration about some of these practices, but that they're advisory, right? They can't instruct, they can't force the city to do anything, and clearly the city did not. The Councilman Navarro and I co-sponsored, it was his resolution, I just co-sponsored it, so I'll make sure he gets the credit, but asking the state comptroller to investigate how we got here. And what I've said is you deserve to know where every one of your dollars is spent, which is why I'm looking forward to reviewing a more complete budget. And if there is such a significant deficit, which we're hearing about, you should know how we got there and whether it's legitimate, right? I've heard through a grapevine that the state comptroller is interested in looking into it. We'll see. I don't know for sure. But they have subpoena power, and the city council is just not equipped, unfortunately, to do a large-scale investigation like this, where we subpoena witnesses, including current and past city employees. All right, so it's about $110 million that the mayor's talked about. of this, the credit card. That the prior administration spent like on a credit card, and we owe this money. So what Mia said is true, we don't owe all of that money. For example, a lot of it is things that we should budget for every year but don't. Like paying for tax appeals, so when you get your property tax or your assessment, if you don't agree with that number, you can file an appeal. Or if you're really low on what the assessment is, the city can do a reverse appeal. And sometimes you win, sometimes the city wins, and there's litigation. That's money that should be in our operating budget as opposed to being spent through a capital money separately, which is not. Certain contingency money that the city wants to have on hand, or when we pay our lawsuits through the insurance fund. That's money that wasn't budgeted for under the Fulton administration, at least in 2025, but the Solomon administration thinks it's proper to budget for. I believe the state agrees with that. So what I had recommended was bonding or deferring, meaning instead of paying $13 million this year on tax appeals, we bond for it, and we pay interest over that over a course of 3 years. So instead of $13 million this year, it's $5 million this year, $5 million next year, $5 million in 2028, and so on. Because that would, every $4 million that the city spends or saves is a percentage point, give or take, on a tax increase. So if we save, say $12 million, that's 3%, we're down to 12% tax increase. Which again, your tax increase overall with counties, city, and Florida would still be close to 14, 15%. That's doing our part to at least cut some spending or defer some spending. We heard unequivocally from the Department of Community Affairs that they would not permit us to do bonding like that. Okay. There's certain contingency money that if we shave off some million here, a million there, we can cut some of the percentage. The administration has not indicated they want to do that. But what we do here is that, if we don't pass this budget, we don't pass this 15%, there will be public safety cuts or fire cuts. And no one on this council suggested doing that, just to be clear. I anticipate a lot of city employees will come on Wednesday to the meeting. An email will circulate to them saying that they should email myself, Councilman Griffin, Gilmore, Ridley, and Navarro, and tell us that our no vote was not a good idea last council meeting. So again, to any city employees watching out there, to anyone watching, anyone here, not once have we suggested cutting our civilian workforce when we talk about cutting spending.
Well, I just want to make a comment, since I've been here since 1983, that tax appeals have always been bonded, okay? And severance payments to police, fire, because cemetery management has to use their vacation time, otherwise they lose it, has always been bonded.
And health insurance, speaking of bonding too.
Well, the health insurance should be paid out of operating. Why that got away like that is amazing.
Yeah, so every, just before I forget, Marina, I don't want to cut you off, but so every year, the prior administration, let's say the last 4 years at least, would budget for X amount of dollars for healthcare, knowing, we allege knowing that it would go over that amount. And they would have to bond for it or pay down from the capital account, which is bad budgeting, budget practices.
Right, it's bad budgeting because that's only for bonded money. But a lot of these practices have been around for decades, unfortunately. So this is not the time to sock people with this huge tax cut to correct your practices. It's just unfortunate, So you need to spread it out. Whether it's a special emergency appropriation, you can do it over 5 years, something. But like I said, some of these big ticket numbers have been bonded forever. I mean, they really need to solve what the problem is, why there's so much people saying they didn't take their vacation days 20 years later, and then we're paying them at the current rate, but we have sky-high overtime. There's something wrong here. We need better systems in place. But I really think that the council should really take a really much better look at some of the information that you're getting. And, maybe it's a PR thing to make sure the worst case scenario, but it's scaring a lot of people. And I just think it's wrong. I think it's a little too hyped.
Speaking on, thank you, Ms. I don't want to keep you up there.
That's okay.
Respond. Yeah.
That's okay.
So speaking on PR, so there was an Instagram post that the city council, we were the first one up there, of course. Every department cut spending except public safety, the city council, and there was another one too. And it said the city council spending was up 20%. which was 0.4 million, or $400,000. So the budget, which you'll review, shows that the city council salaries are $1.1 million less than they were in 2025. So just be wary of what you see on social media. Yeah, Deborah.
Hey, Councilman. Couple of questions. One, could you explain briefly what DCA is and their role? And the second thing is.
Can I answer the first one first before I forget?
Yeah.
DCA is the Department of Community Affairs. They're part of the local governmental services. It's a state, part of the state agency where they're advisory. They're not oversight. Well, they're kind of oversight, but they're not policy. They can't force us to do anything, except for. Well, no, I shouldn't say it. They can't force us to do anything. The MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding with the tax, the proposed tax increase with the loan amount, that comes from the governor. The governor can force us. Either we get the loan at that rate or we don't. So the DCA is, it's like a good government bureau.
Okay.
And so every year we're supposed to present to DCA, to the state, a balanced budget. And they sign off on it. They don't necessarily go to the nitty gritty, obviously, because they haven't done that the last 12 years. But they'll tell us what good practices are, what's not a good practice. For example, they claim, I wasn't in the meeting today, but what I'm told is that they do not want the city to sell our land off. It's a one-time sale. Possibly, but if you look at Battery Park in New York City, there's a land lease there where the city sold that land. It's owned by like a JCRA type entity, and every year the city gets tax revenue from that. So I don't know if anyone looked into that, but it'd be interesting for Bayfront. What was your second question?
All right, during the campaign, Mayor Solomon and other candidates ran on presenting a 5-year budget. Well, I haven't seen a 5-year budget. I've seen, everybody's talking about the 1-year budget. How about the other 4 years? So we can have an idea, because for people that live on a fixed income like myself, I spoke to you on the phone. So I did all the division and everything. And it looks like my taxes are gonna go up somewhere between $600 and $800. For somebody living on a fixed income, that means I gotta go into my emergency fund.
So it shouldn't, because
No, I did the three, I
you're
did
not a
the,
day over 29, but it shouldn't go, there's a senior freeze that.
I'm signed up for all the senior free, but forget that right now, $600 to $800, because I did the thing, and I know how to do escrow, so I've done that. So but if you talked about presenting a 5-year budget, where's the other 4 years? How come we haven't seen some kind of estimated 4 years? My budget goes out to next year, June of next year. So how come we haven't seen that? And also the last question is, I read somewhere, I know certain departments were off limits for cuts, like public safety, fire department, which I agree with. But I read something today that they want to expand recreation. If you are in a budget deficit, I'm not saying cut recreation, but why would you expand it? I'm sorry, I'm not a parent, I'm a single person.
See that, was that online today?
Yeah, I did.
Was it someone posting or the city put out?
In the Hudson Chronicles.
I love Bruce, but.
Yeah, but still, he's pretty right on. But the only thing I'm saying is, as I'm not a parent, but I have helped raise nieces and nephews, okay? And I understand when I grew up, the city didn't, I'm from Brooklyn, city didn't provide recreation for us, okay? We had to do our own recreation. We played, we went outside. When has it become the job of the city to provide recreation? Parents have to take some responsibility too. I don't mind paying for schools, I don't mind paying for recreation for the next generation, but you got a budget deficit, you asking me for 15 to 20% increase, and you want to expand recreation? You out of your freaking mind? Let the parents do some of their job. Because you know what? I'm getting tired of my property taxes becoming a piggy bank for everybody. I've been here 35 years, I've owned property for 20, and I bought it because I knew down the road, if I didn't buy something, I wouldn't be able to afford to live here because of the rents. I rented for most of my life. But it seems like property taxes are becoming a piggy bank, arts and culture, and all this other crap. Well, you know what, parents? Start providing recreation for your own kids. Nothing should be expanded. You don't have to cut recreation, but we're in a budget deficit. Don't expand anything else.
I haven't seen that. I do recognize that's County Chronicles for their, and he's always on top of things, but
Well, I've read other places too. so-
I haven't seen that, yeah. I mean, we barely do recreation programs as it is, so I'm not aware of any expanding of it. What's your second question? Or your third question?
First part was about a 5-year budget.
Oh, Bill, thank you. Our President Emeritus, Vice President, Bill, thank you. Appreciate it. I haven't seen what I've seen is projection was what happens next year and the year after and the year after that. If we don't raise taxes a certain amount, and how much revenue we have to create or spending the kind of, I haven't seen a budget like this for 5 years. Yeah.
Hey, Tom, can you remind me how much transitional aid the city is receiving?
It's a $105 million loan, a $15 million grant.
Okay.
So that's 120. And then, as I said before, we expect some additional grant money coming in.
And can you remind me who negotiated that package on behalf of the city?
Mayor Solomon.
Can you explain how Patterson announced 3 days ago that they're getting $76 million in free state transitional funding on a budget of $350 million, and Jersey City, with a budget more than double that, is somehow getting 1/5 of the free money? Like, I'm a homeowner, and fortunately, I'm not living on a fixed income, but that doesn't mean that the money's growing out on a tree in the backyard. How could our mayor, first of all, present, to Mia's point, a scenario that really doesn't seem rooted in any real fact? It's painting the darkest picture possible just so that he can tar and feather his predecessor, it seems, because he has some sort of axe to grind. And then he goes and sits in a room alone with the state and somehow negotiates the worst possible aid package for this city. Like, it's incomprehensible. It hurts people whether you're on a fixed income or not. And I don't understand why, this is acceptable. I mean, honestly, people should be out in the streets recalling our mayor for being completely incapable of negotiating an aid package for this city. It's outrageous. And then you have the head of the police officers union writing op-eds in Hudson County View about how the only way to make sure the city's economic future is bright is to protect police at all costs. Jersey City is not in an economic crisis in the strictest sense of the term because of a lack of investment or a high crime rate. We're in an economic crisis because our mayor seems to think that he can score points with somebody, I don't know who, to paint a budget picture that's not based in reality. And now the police are somehow going to be the one department that's not impacted by this. To Mia's point, overtime is out of control. Severance packages are out of control. Mike can't get a truck to work. He can't hire basic people to make sure that we have trees in the city. To Mike's point before, he talked about the HVI, the Heat Vulnerability Index. New York City has an index. It says, if you live on this block, there's X amount of tree canopy, this is the closest park to you, this is the closest cooling center. Jersey City doesn't have any of that. That's fine, okay? Lack of tree cover impacts people in the summer. Jersey City has awful tree canopy. And you know what that means? That means that people on fixed incomes need to spend more money on air conditioning in the summer. We're cutting forestry. We're cutting all of these things that would actually help people save money. And instead, we're saying, you know what? We can't touch the public safety budget. We can't do anything there because if we let police retire out and don't hire more people, it's going to be an economic disaster for this city. What are we doing? I don't understand why nobody is holding the mayor accountable. This is people's real ability to stay in Jersey City. I'm having conversations with my husband about the fact that I could take a 3% tax increase on my income taxes and still save money by moving to New York City at this point because my property taxes are spiraling out of control. This is driving people on fixed incomes, on flexible incomes out of the city. It's outrageous. And I know that this isn't a question, but like, who is holding the mayor accountable? Who is asking why nobody else was in the room when he was negotiating this awful aid package with DCA? Who is making sure that things that are being cut are the things that long-term, like, we cut composting. The mayor announced he's gonna cut composting. So now we're gonna pay regional more money to pick up our trash because we pay regional by the pound for trash. So we've cut composting, and now we're gonna pay regional more money. That's not a savings. That's just trying to paint that you're saving people money by making it as painful as possible for people. Like, I don't understand, and I appreciate you coming here, and I appreciate you answering questions, but who is holding him accountable? Who is running a social media campaign to say, cutting composting doesn't save anybody money? Because now you just pay more, now we just have to pay regional more. Who is saying we need to track overtime spending for the police? Is there a system in place? Is there a system in place to make sure that the people who have accrued vacation days actually accrued those vacation days 20 years ago? Because it just seems like we're willing to say, you know what, we're gonna go on the honor system. We're gonna say, this city inspector showed up and there was no cause for action, so there's no fine issued, when I have evidence myself, and I know we've talked about it, of city inspectors saying that they've gone and inspected something, and they haven't, because the issue is still there. So where's the accountability? Where are the people who are being fired? We're all paying for this corruption. And I'm sick and tired of it. It's at every level. It's not just the Board of Ed that's corrupt. It's the county that's corrupt. It's the city that's corrupt. It's all of them. And we're all paying for it. Taxes don't need to be this high if the mayor was actually able to grow a spine and get rid of some of the corruption and take on some of the vested interests in the police force that could actually help save our city money. And to your point, Deb, like, maybe we don't need to expand Parks and Recreation, but keep the budget steady, because that's actually a decent use of money for people. Keeping kids like active in the summer means that you don't need police to go and arrest them for doing something else. It's absolutely outrageous, and I really want to know why nobody's holding the mayor accountable.
And if I may, Councilman, super quick, online, we also are getting similar sentiment regarding the difference in treatment that Jersey City has received relative to, Atlantic City, Patterson. And so to the extent that you can speak on why, Jersey City has treated differently, that would be helpful.
Yeah, great questions. So Patterson, I found that today what their aid package was. I think their council president posted a comment about they have a $75 million deficit and got essentially zero tax increase. I'm looking into that. I don't have an answer for you on that. I found today about what theirs is. I don't know why their aid package is different. The overtime spending for public safety. So we talk about overtime spending. It's generally the police department. The fire department has little to no overtime spending. From the mayor to announce the 20% tax increase to the 15% tax increase. So again, that's $20 million in quote unquote savings. He did curtail a lot of it now for police overtime for the rest of the year. The city council is considering, will consider on Wednesday a resolution for a contract, which is no cost to the city, for a computer program that will better track overtime. So overtime is and off-duty are two different things. So one is, you see a police officer working on a construction site, they're in uniform, but they're not on duty. They're not responding to calls if you call 911. That's an off-duty job. They're being hired by the developer or the contractor, whatever it may be, construction company, to work that duty. The city gets that money and then pays it to the officer. So that software will track that, and also the overtime program. So for example, if an officer works their shift and is called to emergency or 911 call and they stay past their shift, that's overtime. Again, we haven't seen the line by line public safety budget. I'm hopeful that they have looked into cutting overtime.
Was that tracked before? With any sort of system, or was it just kind of?
It's by paper now.
Great.
Yeah, it's by paper now. Actually, the police chief, one of the former police chiefs went to prison for that, actually. or he was indicted federally for issues of overtime.
Today in caucus, they presented something, right?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, yeah, that's the computer program, which is to better track overtime spending. The op-ed from the police union, president, he's doing what he's supposed to do, he's advocating for his membership, I don't begrudge that. What I do have an issue with though is again, that there were talking points sent out by the administration to city employees saying that if we don't pass this 15% increase, there will be cuts to public safety. That was never mentioned by any council member. Other way, notice I took away you're talking, Adam. We have, I think we have currently 9 deputy chiefs in the police department. New York City has 4. So I'm certain there's a way to encourage those who are long-serving to perhaps
Speed it up a little.
maybe take retirement or scale back the deputy chief appointment. Just because the way our department is shaped, we have 735 police officers, give or take. We have a public safety director, we have a police chief, you have 9 deputy chiefs, you have captains in every district, lieutenants in every district. It's probably too many deputy chiefs. And again, when I say that here, when I'm going to say what I'm going to say on Wednesday, none of that is at all to begrudge any person holding those roles. It's not a personal affront to anybody. It's just the fact that you have a role. The most sacred thing you can have is the relationship between a public safety job and a taxpayer. So again, I'm not begrudging anyone who holds these roles, but if there's ways to cut spending at the top, I think we should look into it. And you mentioned about the meetings with DCA. So it was the mayor's team, mayor, chief of staff, CFO. Again, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Whoever he had negotiating with the state. The city council doesn't have an authority to be in the room there. We weren't invited to be in the room. Had we been invited to be there, but we don't have an authority to force ourselves into the room, unfortunately. Some things we're looking for accountability of the administration. Let's say tempers got a little hot today in the caucus because we were waiting on things like an organization chart. So every corporation, every city has an organization chart. It's the mayor's up here, the business administrator, every department, city council. It's basically, the way the city runs and works. We haven't gotten that. I asked for where every city vehicle is assigned. We haven't gotten that. Denise Ridley asked for every new hire in 2026. We haven't gotten that list yet. And my comment today was it shouldn't take a long time to make that list, considering we're in a budget crisis. I can't imagine or hope there weren't too many hires in 2026, knowing going into the year that we had a budget crisis. You may not see it publicly on social media, but there are these conversations happening at City Hall to get this information. What the City Council does with that information, you'll see. But.
Well, I'm going to go further on some of the things that Mia was talking about. Number one, it happens to be illegal to deliberately overspend your municipal budget. And this came into being in the late 80s, and I know it's serious because when I was the finance chairman of our borough council in Leonia, I threatened the police chief with it and scared the crap out of him. You cannot purposely overspend your budget. So if people are doing that, they need to be held to account for it. Another thing you can't do is you cannot carry expenses over at the end of any year. Your budget has to be finished and all your bills paid. In other words, everything you committed to has to come out of that current year. It's not allowed to be carried over into the next year. Now, we could look at some governors, for example, and find out they never did that. Governor Florio, Governor Whitman, Governor McGreevy, and everyone since except Murphy carried over expenses, but you're not allowed to do it. So if that was done, then those people need to be held to account for it too. I'm looking at some city functions.
That's why we asked for the state comptrollers. The state comptrollers, the oversight authority for the state. They look into things like budget malfeasance.
Exactly, and they need to look into that. City departments, they have a tendency to go along same old, but I have noticed some departments seem to have fallen off in what their activity level was, and a good example of that's cultural affairs. When I first came to Jersey City, there were ethnic festivals like once, twice a month downtown. They were fantastic. Cultural affairs helped organize those, helped promote them, helped monitor them. There's none of that anymore. So as far as I'm concerned, that department could go, because they're not doing anything anymore. Deputy mayors, this might have been a nice perk in Mayor Hague's day, but do we still really need deputy mayors? I don't understand the purpose of that. And it would be a really nice gesture to get rid of a couple of big fat director positions up there on the top. I think there's a lot of room for cutting. Overtime ought to be frozen right now. There should be no reason for overtime unless you've got like a murder investigation or something. I have west of me every single night, drag racing. You can hear it. Something horrible is going to happen there, and the police know about it, but they ignore it. So I think, we got to send a message here. I think there are a lot of areas where we could start not losing money. That's it.
Areas not doing what with money?
What was that?
Leaking, not leaking.
Bleeding money. Bleeding money. Thanks.
If I could get one question in. I think it's along the same lines of what Mary was just saying. Why are business administrators and financial actors who helped get us into this mess still working for the city? What will you do to get us to a place of accountability?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this came up in my community meeting. I think I asked it. We have public safety employees who are sworn officers. We have public safety. We have civilian officers, civilian employees, and we have people who are civil service. So, for example, if someone got written up for time card fraud yesterday, it was the first time in 20 years they ever did anything wrong. You can't just fire them. There's a process to go about that. So the majority of our employees are civil service employees. That may not have been you. I don't want to say it was you and assign it, but someone in my community said, well, why does the mayor ask the state to remove some civil service protections? Good question, but that's a slippery slope. Yeah, I mean, we do want unions to protect our employees, and there's a reason that unions exist. We have a ton of hardworking employees. So what can we do is that'll be part of the budget hearings. The hearings themselves are like a council meeting. They're the directors, like a caucus. Directors come up, they talk about their department, talk about what they spend and why they spend it. But the real work of what we're going to do into this budget will be the council working together behind the scenes. I don't mean behind the curtain so you don't see anything, but I mean the conversations we're going to have and then what we bring out to the public and the work you're going to see. So the hearings will be informative, but the work will happen after that. So again, if we get individuals who were, or the individual who was employed in the prior administration as civil service protection, doesn't have any disciplinary actions against them, doesn't have anything other than, hey, our budget's in bad shape. Again, I'm a lawyer, but I don't want to give a legal opinion. I don't think you can fire that person just for that. But we can look into what they're getting paid and who's getting paid what to do what.
Tom, healthcare costs are skyrocketing.
In every municipality in the state.
And do you know roughly what percentage of the budget are they here in Jersey City for city employees?
That's a good question, Bill. I don't have the percentage in here. I'll find that for you, though. We'll go through the numbers. But yeah, every municipality in New Jersey improperly budgeted for healthcare, given how much it's costing.
I know in Ridgewood, for example, they did something. They changed the health insurance providers, and that way they were able to control the increase in spending for this fiscal year.
We did that as well. We changed our providers. It's courtesy of self-insured. We have a healthcare administrator. So we went from Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield to Aetna, and Meridian, Aetna, whatever it's called. And apparently a lot of the costs over the years were people going to out-of-network doctors. So the change, presumably, what we're told is that people are having more in-network visits now than they did before.
And on a very different note, I know you worked really hard for many years to get elected to the city council. Are you glad what was approved?
That's a great question, Bill. Bill, I got everything I asked for.
And more.
Again, I never ask anyone to do anything I'm not willing to do myself, from doing cleanups to shoveling snow to picking up the crap along the side of the road. It's the greatest honor to serve all of you, and we have more work to do, though, a lot more of it too. So, thank you. Good question, Bill. Thank you.
And just to, put a finer point on that, we had our first cleanup back in April, and it was raining. And Councilman Zuppa joined us with his council aide, Arjumand, and their team has been amazing just participating in these cleanups. So thank you.
Thank you. And Arjumand made every cleanup so far this year. I've been to a couple too. We appreciate it.
1,000, that's right. I'm gonna get one quick question in here. Bear with me for a second.
Sit down.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot of accountability in these comments being made.
Just on that point again, Adam asked a really pointed and very good question. Who's holding the mayor accountable? Who's holding the administration accountable? The best way we can do that is through the budget. Generally, if we think that, hey, take out the loan for a second, just for argument's sake. If we just got a budget and the mayor's proposing a tax increase, what we do is, and this is the control we have, is to cut the spending. Problem is you can't take out the loan because we need that money. And it does hamstring the city council's hands a little bit, and it's been frustrating. And Fitz asked me before, how am I gonna vote, is I'm gonna vote the most responsible thing I can do. I don't know what that's gonna look like yet, because we're still trying to work on some issues and some, hopefully, last minute, up the sleeve kind of ideas, but you hold the mayor accountable through the budget.
So come Wednesday, without the council really having all the information, truly having seen the entire budget and had the time to sort of analyze it, you're gonna have to take this vote. So that's kind of what I'm taking away.
So the budget vote on Wednesday is just to introduce the budget.
Just
The budget will be voted on at either the August regular meeting or an August special meeting.
I'll find out, okay.
However, the memorandum of understanding for the loan is on the agenda for Wednesday and will essentially dictate to us whether we have a 15% tax increase or not.
So effectively, you are voting for like a tax increase or no increase on Wednesday?
Essentially, yeah, the council, yeah.
Okay.
I think Mia.
Yeah, sorry.
Right, okay. Just a couple of things. This police overtime off-duty jobs, these off-duty jobs, I remember, I don't know how many years ago, I keep forgetting, I was talking to a police officer, and he told me that they had one guy, because I said to him, there's gotta be a lot of fraud here. They work an off-duty job, maybe near where they live, and then they call in sick. And from what I heard, the police have unlimited sick days. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. And he said, oh, we have one guy who checks on that. I said, one guy for 800 police officers?
And there was a federal investigation to our off-duty jobs, which resulted in indictments and convictions.
When was that?
4 or 5 years ago. Just Google Chief Zaki, Z-A-C-C-H-E.
Was he the one who was working on a federal at the housing project, because that was funded by the feds, right? And he would call in and say he worked it, but he never showed up. Yeah, stuff like that. You know, it's the same thing with these off-duty jobs. You know, they could be working, they don't have to do an off-duty job here, even though Jersey City probably has the most off-duty jobs because of all the construction, but that needs to be curtailed. And I had heard that New York City did away with that a number of years ago. I don't know if that's true or not, because it was finding too much fraud. People call in sick, they live in Paramus, and then they do an off-duty job in Paramus when they call in sick in Jersey City. You know, and if they have unlimited sick days, holy crap.
So that shouldn't be possible. Here's why, because you have to wear your police uniform. If I'm a police officer in Paramus, contractually, I know this because I've written police contracts before, off-duty in Paramus hires Paramus officers. If there's a police officer in a Jersey City uniform in a different town, there'd be huge problems with that.
Oh, all right, well, that's good to hear. Okay, but I still think that should be curtailed as off-duty jobs. One thing that came up in the audit report for calendar year 2024, which was amazing, the auditor said they can't express an opinion, is that the city had no fixed assets inventory system that they could rely on. That means automobiles, street cleaners, you know, we bonded like tens of millions of dollars for Ford, Chevrolet trucks. The street sweepers, I was amazed by considering how dirty the city is, how many new ones we got, and they don't have an inventory system in place to track that. That they commented on that in the opinion. I mean, can someone start working on an inventory system of fixed assets?
So that's why I've asked for we start with the automobile audit.
Right.
They don't know where every car is assigned, which is problematic.
Oh, yeah, we had an incident, I don't know how many years ago, where 3 senior level police officers, you know, they weren't just police, they were senior, they lived down by the shore, and they took their police car, you know, it was an unmarked car, they were unmarked cars, and they took their police cars home with them and used them all weekend. And we paid for the gas and the usage and the repairs on those cars. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to cut, but I think we need to take a better look at public safety. Because they consume the largest part of the budget. You know, and it's not right for people to have to move out of the city because they can't afford it.
And just on that note too, yeah, I agree. So when we talk about looking into the budget, every line item should be scrutinized properly. It's our job to do that. I said before, you're gonna get someone who's gonna question authority. You will not see me be a rubber stamp to anybody, right? I ask, you don't watch the caucus, you should. I ask quite a few questions, but, or the council meetings. And I also don't believe in any kind of scare tactics. So that, if the council doesn't do X, Y, and Z, we're gonna have mass layouts of police and there'll be chaos in the streets and cats and dogs will be mingling. You know, I don't believe in that. There's always room to improve things and cut inefficiency and maybe it's an automobile issue, maybe it's cutting how many cars we have in our fleet, which I'm looking forward to knowing the answer to that. But we can scrutinize any department, including public safety, without saying we're going to end up with a lawless city.
Mm-hmm. Especially when as the city gentrifies, the crime rate typically goes down. You know, I don't think people living in these high rises are, you know, stabbing people in the streets, you know what I'm saying? So.
You haven't been in Jordan Square, have you?
I don't know if it's the new people though. It could be a function of the increase in the homeless. And also another point is that if there were so many unpaid bills, the city is required to set up encumbrances. That's why I don't understand this. I saw 17 million of encumbrances for the general fund and I think 10 million for the capital fund. That is the rule. You know what I'm saying? It's like accounts payable. You gotta set it up as accounts payable. And if it's more than one payment due, you encumber the whole thing, right? So how we go, and I saw the almost $12 million of 2024 budget, went over budget, went over budget, which should have been charged to the 2025 budget. So I'm getting to, you know, maybe the auditors have been around too long and they just like shrug their shoulders and say, man, there's nothing we can do about it. You know, maybe we need somebody new to come in and take a look and say, these are the rules and you have to abide by the rules. Because
just keep in mind, the auditors have no authority to tell the city to do anything.
well, they can write them up and not give them a clean opinion, you know, which is detrimental then to the bond rating too for the city.
What should have happened over the last 12 years is we should have gotten tax increases with the inflation rate, which never happened. There's always been a minimal or a flat tax here. And you've gotten tax increases over the years, but it's mostly from the Board of Ed. It wasn't from the city. The responsible thing year over year would have been to increase your taxes. In 2021, when we had an election, the American Relief Fund money was spent to lower our debt. So there wouldn't be a municipal tax increase, and that money's going down too.
Right. And also, I just lost my train of thought.
I'm here all night.
I don't want to be here all night. Yeah, I just.
We're here all night, right?
Adam, before you have your question, let me just get one more from YouTube here. At a past town hall, you explained that more development can help broaden the tax base. Given this emergency, are you still eyeing carve-outs or exceptions to rezoning for places like Hilltop?
So yes, in a prior meeting, I said that someone said with all this development. So generally speaking, again, this is not for tax abated properties, which I will talk about in a second as well. the more you build, the better our tax rate is, which is why a city of our size and the work that Journal Square has done to work on the regional housing crisis, we should not be in a budget deficit. It's also mean that, and a good thing too is that once we're out of it, we should stay out of it, unless there's further fiscal mismanagement from city representatives, because of how our tax rate has grown. Quick issue on pilots. Let me answer the question more directly before I go to pilots. I've asked the planning department to look into the Journal Square 2060 redevelopment plan, which all of you know very much about. A lot of you advocated for and worked on, and helped me advocate when I was president for the amendments, so that all the new buildings going up here have mandatory affordable housing. I haven't gotten their planning's feedback yet on what zone will be next. I may have mentioned previously about carve-outs for the hilltop, but we haven't looked into it, and I don't know why planning hasn't given me an assessment. But again, housing is good. The more there is, the more affordable housing there is, the more will benefit the city. Quick issue on pilots. So tax abatement has been a dirty phrase for at least 10 years. It's been used by politicians who ran for mayor, became mayor, were the mayor, to demonize people who are building, and developers are an easy target, right? I mean, say, oh, that damn developer, look what they're doing to ruin our neighborhood. And unfortunately, it's been part of political campaigns for a long time. The reality with tax abatements is it's not zero tax, it's not no tax, it's not a benefit from tax in the sense that, well, homeowners, you better pay taxes and these developers won't. It's payment in lieu of tax, which is a pilot. And if our city budget, our city taxes and tax increase are based on how much money we're bringing in versus how much money we're putting out for spending, the city benefits more from pilots than they would from a regularly taxed property. For example, it's on the agenda currently. It's going to be moved to most likely the September meeting for the council to decide on, is canal crossings. It's a proposed tax abatement or pilot for a new housing neighborhood. Right now, the property sits vacant. It's unlikely that they would develop at all without the assistance of a pilot. So the city gets $60,000 or so a year in taxes. We'll get millions every year with a pilot. Pilots are not appropriate for every project. They're not needed for every project. But when they are, it's not the homeowner getting screwed on from the city side of it. The Board of Ed may get screwed, the schools may get screwed from pilots if they're not done properly. But hell, they've been raising taxes year after year, regardless of whether there's a pilot or not, right? So that's a whole different conversation. So long-winded answer is waiting for plan to get back to me. Yes, the housing is good for this community. I believe in responsible development, and I've been consistent on that.
So just a tip for tracking city vehicles, an Apple AirTag is like $25.
What is?
An Apple AirTag is like $25, and city could probably buy a whole bunch of those. And
so the majority of our vehicles have GPS trackers. They're using not, we don't know. But.
So
thank you.
I was the one who mentioned during the town hall the civil service reforms, and I know that.
I'm sorry, I just.
No, don't worry. I was talking to Sumit about this a little more the other day because I understand that. That could potentially be abused by an administration if they wanted to, if they had somebody they didn't like and they wanted to fire them, they could say, we're gonna go to the state, get a suspension of the civil service laws, and we're gonna fire a bunch of people we don't like. But what's to say that the city can't go to the state and say, we're declaring a financial emergency, and when a Tier 1 city declares a financial emergency, it comes with certain oversight from the state. There's certain things that really tie the city's hands and make it very unpalatable to do something like that. But at the same time, the civil service rules then get suspended, and people who, maybe it's the first time that somebody has time card fraud. But if the magnitude of that time card fraud is huge, whether it's your first time or it's your 10th time, you're still screwing over city taxpayers. there's really like, I think what's frustrating in all this is just, there's 300,000 people, and I said this at your town hall. There's 300,000, I would imagine, pretty intelligent people in this city. Maybe there's 50,000 duds, but like, we got a lot of smart people in this city, and somehow we elected a mayor who can't seem to think of any creative ideas on how to go to the state and say, we're in an emergency. We have to think creatively about how do we approach civil service laws. Like, why did we repair all the motorcycles for the motorcycle enforcement if we were looking at a huge budget deficit? The city had to spend money to do that. We have a bunch of police officers who could just go and stand on Kennedy Boulevard right outside of One Journal Square and ticket people like they're handing out tickets at the deli counter, and they don't even need a motorcycle to do that. And then like the mayor's posting on social media about how great the motorcycle brigade is, and everybody commented, they're only enforcing downtown. So everybody in the city is paying for that, and the only people who see the benefit of it are people in Ward E. The Jersey City Medical Center land sale, like to your point before, don't sell it. Do a sale leaseback where the developer pays an annual lease on it, and then it gets developed. Like James Solomon has spent all his years in city council opposing development to protect the character of downtown, while we're in Journal Square dealing with the brunt of it, and he's opposed to 150 Bay Street. He's opposed to the Jersey City Medical Center land sale. Like, these are things that would immediately help the city budget, but in Ward C, we're the ones who have to feel the brunt of it. We're the ones who have the concrete trucks barreling down our streets every day to protect the historic character of Ward E. Like, everything in this just seems like the same story that we felt for 12 years under Fulop, which is a tale of two cities where everything downtown gets protected. They get the motorcycle squad to make sure that little kids can cross the street safely. And I have to worry every day when I'm pushing my daughter across Newark Avenue that I'm gonna get hit by a car because I've emailed about this before. The JCPD parks their squad car in the crosswalk. Like, what are we doing? It's beyond me that we can't sell land, the Jersey City Medical Center land, potentially $30 million worth of land. That's like 1/5 of the budget hole that we're getting in state aid. Okay, it's a one-time infusion. So it's done after that. But like, there's just no effort to cushion the blow. I mean, every $4 million is 1% of a tax increase, that's an 8% decrease in your tax increase. 7.5%. I mean, we'd go from a 20% tax increase to a 12.5% tax increase. That's a huge dent.
Yeah, I thought I'd be okay with the 12%. It's not ideal, but 12% would be good enough. We could have done that with deferring the tax appeals, but.
Right, like it's just, and once again, this isn't a question, but why is, the pain is being spread out for everybody, but it seems like once again, the benefit of all of this is completely inuring to downtown. And like James Solomon never batted an eye when they redid the Newark Avenue pedestrian plaza. But now the Open Space Trust Fund is being raided to pay for police cars. Like, so that money that was supposed to go to Courthouse Park, in part, now goes to the police when JCPD is downtown on motorcycles, making sure that the streets are safe down here. And every day we're watching people run red lights. To Mary's point about drag racing, I'm about to send you an email tonight. There were 12 cars on my street at 3:14 in the morning on Saturday night, revving their engines and doing donuts at the intersection of St. Paul's and Kennedy.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, how is this even happening in this city? I've emailed about it. I know Mary's emailed about it. We're telling the JCPD where the problem is. We're literally saying, hey, police officers, here's the crime. Go do something. And we can't get anybody to do anything here. And then they're downtown handing out tickets left and right for people running a stop sign. People literally driving down my street at 70 miles per hour, and I'm telling them it's happening, and we don't get anything here.
So the motorcycle, I've seen them in Journal Square, I don't know. I don't have any empirical data of the downtown mall. Was that?
Because I did mention the gas station. By the way, I just want to mention about civil service. You're allowed to lay civil service people off for reduction in force.
You can furlough them, yeah.
No, you can lay them off.
If you gotta start at the bottom, it's not gonna get the big money people anyway.
Well,
You gotta
lay
start
off a
somewhere.
lot of them then.
And just, Adam had a lot of support in your talking points here. So.
Yeah, so, I'm trying to take notes again, Adam, so, well thought out, passionate question, comments, as always. We have seen the motorcycles in Ward C, again, I'll get some data on whether they're elsewhere more than they are, where they belong in Ward C. The North District, the captain and I had a conversation last week about redeploying some of the officers to problem areas in the ward, including revving engines. What was over 40 you said for that?
Down by Van Kuren, it's the drag, like the drag.
Yeah. So it's, yep. I would love, speaking of revamping civil service, I would love to have like a little deputy badge and a ticket book. I'd walk up and down Kennedy Boulevard and take everybody, but, so go about money making. I'll come back, or I'll send Fitz an email, I'll get some information on the motorcycle squad and deployment of forces, yeah.
Now I have got my train of thought.
You can call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't be the first constituent to do it.
Wow. What's the status of the audit of the tax abatements?
Yeah, good question. We requested that. We were told today that the CFO is working through it,
Okay,
and we don't have it yet.
you don't have it yet. Now, is the CFO the only person auditing all those tax abatements? Or you have a CPA firm doing that?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Oh
I
my
don't know.
God, one guy can't do that, all of that.
And he's busy with
Documentation is stacks of paper. Now, I don't agree with you. I understand what you're saying, that the city gets more. At one point, the city was like at 51% of your tax bill with tax abatements. But it robs from the schools and it robs from the county. So the people who don't have tax abatements have had to make up for all of that. There is online, and you'll find it under the finance department, a user-friendly budget. But I found that to be wrong. I worked with a couple of people a number of years back, and there were a lot of tax abatements that were missing. And at one point, this is probably about 4 years ago, we were short over $330 million. The difference between the abatements and full taxation. All right, so great, and maybe that's part of the problem when the city was getting 50%, 51% of your tax bill, and now it's lower because the schools have gone up.
And that's one part of the current budget problem is that we have pilot agreements that are ending, and the city's not getting as much money as it did before.
Well, then they need to change the assessment, because those were based on low assessments. So if they were willing to do that for condo buildings, and I know a few condo buildings got hit really hard when their abatement was up, they should do that for office buildings and rental buildings, which I hear, I remember one of the women, I can't remember her name now, but anyway, she was a tax collector. She told me, this is outrageous. I get these audit reports, they're all LLCs. We never get to see the rent roll. We have to feel confident that the CPA firm is telling us the truth because we never get to see anything in terms of how they calculated their pilot payment. You know, so, and from what I hear, what the rentals, and they pay a huge, people pay a huge amount of money to live there, we get a very small fraction of it. And since a lot of the building is all high-end luxury rentals, that should be an area that we really should take a look at and make sure we're getting our fair share. Because even if you may think, oh, it was vacant land and nobody was living there, well, people have kids, they go to the schools, but then they're not paying the fair share of taxes to support the schools. They do use some county services, like Kennedy Boulevard is a county road. But they do have children and go to schools. And especially the 3 and 4 year old program, which is very popular because there's no cost to the parents, right? So a lot of parents stay here until their kids are like 5 or 6 or they, 7 years old, and then they may move somewhere else because they want to take advantage of that free 3 and 4 year old program. So these high-end luxury buildings need to be audited to make sure we're getting our fair share. And there was a mention about the city being in financial distress. There is a calculation. A city's in financial distress when they collect less than 70% of their taxes, that they bill out. That's financial distress. We're at 98.6. So technically, the city is not financial distressed, it's mismanaged, is what it is, it's mismanaged. So I just wanted to set that straight. But I think we need to know about that audit of the tax abatements and also who's doing it. Thank you.
I'll get those answers for you too. Like I was saying too, not every project needs a pilot. I would love to mandate, there's a difference between what you've heard on the campaign trail from other candidates, I would never say this, but and what's realistic. I would love to mandate every new development be 60% affordable housing. But no one's gonna build that because they can't afford to build it, right? So there's being realistic, and then there's lying to you. So like I said, I'm not gonna lie to you. Can't force you to do 50% affordable housing. So there are projects like 701 Newark that will be a good project when it's finished, 20% affordable housing that needed a pilot. Because otherwise it would sit vacant land, and then we hear about how the land was vacant for a long time. The Journal didn't get a pilot. It's a gigantic building, but all I'm gonna say about that is that there are certain things we needed for infrastructure in Ward City and Journal Square. And if you don't have it currently, an empty lot's not going to build it. So things like a rec center, a park, community space, retail, someone's gonna build it. Just keep that in mind.
2 quick questions. One, when I first moved here, pilots and abatements were like 10 years. Now, recently, in the last maybe 10 years, they've gone up 30 years. So why do we need 30-year tax abatements? That's one. Number 2, the young lady over here had a question. If you guys vote on this tax increase, or you don't vote, what kind, our 3rd quarter taxes, which I believe are due in August, are they gonna be estimated bills, and how high are they gonna be? Because I know last year we got an estimated bill, it was pretty high, and then when we got the 4th quarter bill, it was even worse. So how are you gonna determine, if you haven't voted on the budget, on the increase, whether it's 15 or 20, what the 3rd quarter estimated bill is gonna be?
All right, great question. So this should be the only time where the budget is screwed up like this, meaning the timeline. Okay. So every year we should have a budget proposed to us by early spring, voted on it, 3rd quarter tax bill you get, 4th quarter tax bill. What was it?
That hasn't been in years.
Yeah, well, the delay this year specifically is because we're waiting on state aid, right? So the city council can vote on it. So last council meeting was a special council meeting, on July 1st. It was so we can consider the 3rd quarter tax increase. The council voted 9-0 against that because, well, a lot of reasons, but one of them, the reason I voted no on it was because we hadn't seen a budget. And I was counting on us to be able to do better for all of you with some spending cuts. Again, I use the tax appeals as an example. It would have got us down to 12%. Some of my colleagues had other ideas, using some of the rainy day fund or selling property, whatever the option was. There were other ways. And the risk of that would have, you would have, the majority of the spending would have fallen, the majority of the bill would have fallen on the 4th quarter. Now we're presented with this 15 or 20, essentially they're telling us if you want a loan, you have to raise taxes by 15%. What the city council can do is have them vote on a municipal tax levy for the 3rd quarter to reflect either that or even a lower amount, so that it alleviates some of the quote-unquote pain you would feel in the 4th quarter.
Okay.
I don't know why they switched from 10 years to 30-year pilots. I would have to get into the numbers on that.
Yes, they were always 30-year. No, they were not. No, they were not. I moved here in 1990. They were 10 years.
They were
I'm just
not,
saying,
they were 10
house that
years.
you saw from downtown were from,
Newport got a 40-year basement.
No,
I think we have
but the majority of them
the
were
Healy
10.
administration, the end of the Healy administration, which would make sense if, they were 20 years, 30 years, that's why they're coming up now.
Because that's ridiculous.
I mean, I could.
Yeah.
No, not
The reason
all
you
of
see
them.
30-year pilots now more so is because a bank isn't willing to give a 30-year mortgage
Okay.
unless there's a pilot for the same term as their mortgage.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause I
Just,
know
are,
some of them work.
are we actually going to get an estimated bill within the next few weeks, or are we gonna have to double up in November?
So again, if the council is able to put onto the agenda a late third quarter tax bill, you'll get a third quarter tax bill before you would put everything on the fourth quarter. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a very informative session. For the folks joining us remotely, you have like another 10 seconds to put in a question in the chat, like a last burning one. For those of you joining here, if there's a last burning question you have, please get behind the mic. Okay.
Do you have any non-budget related questions or concerns? You can talk to me after too if you have any constituent issues.
Well, Councilman, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, this is an issue that is of a lot of concern to us, to the membership, to the broader community, and so we'll be keeping an eye out on sort of what happens and the next steps, and look forward to hosting you again down the line whenever it makes sense for you to give us another update.
Yeah, please.
Just real quick, some unrelated updates. The administration and I have been working with Boulevard Drinks about finding them a more permanent home. I've joked in my community meeting, I'll joke here too, that I've committed Mayor Solomon to doing a hot dog eating contest for all the stress that went into the Boulevard Drinks. The city has no role in the sale of private property from one owner to another. All we can do is affect the zoning and what goes there. So, for example, White Castle. Everyone loves those heartburn-inducing burgers, right? They sold, what I hear, they sold their property for $13 million. You may have nostalgia about going to the White Castle on Kennedy Boulevard. There's nothing I can do to stop that sale. The private owner is making quite the benefit of selling their property to the developer to develop that property. Same thing happened with Boulevard Drinks, but what we can do is try to facilitate, find them in the location. The owner mentioned on Facebook recently that they're going to announce a new location. If it is where I think it is and where we help them get, it'll work out very well for them. You haven't heard about Courthouse Park in a while. Let's start with the bad news first. Bad news is that the prior administration's promised to set aside $14 million for the demolition of 595 Newark Avenue. That money was not set aside. Or if it was spent on something else. However, the county and the city have been working together on trying a partnership to get that building down and a park built there. So stay tuned on that. I remember there are some news articles that went out. This is going to take the county's assistance to get done, just because the city does not have the money to build a park there. So just keep to demolish the building, I should say. But I do hope for good news there. In the next month or so, I'd like to schedule a meeting and come in with 808 Pavonia. That's where the old Pompidou site was supposed to go. The developer there is working on a presentation to give something back to the community that's not the Pompidou, and they want your input.
So you know when the new occupants of the courthouse will be moving to a new building on Newark Avenue, you know when it's ever going to happen?
Yeah, it's supposed to be March of 2025. Now they're working on that now. They're significant. I don't want to say significant. There are issues with technology in the new building between the county and the judiciary. They cut the ribbon on it. It was a nice ceremony honoring Congressman Guarini, who passed away shortly thereafter. There are some people who are occupying the courthouse, including the sheriff's office, but not the court staff yet, or the prosecutor's office. I'm told by the end of the year, or by September, but I heard that last year too.
And Loews Theater, is it going to be like an NJ Pack or something, where celebrities come over there too, or what's going to be?
A lot of celebrities come to the Lowe's. So one of the first things I did after the December election was tour the Lowe's Theater. It looks fantastic inside. They are putting painstaking work and energy into restoring it to the way it looked like in 1920, which is fantastic. It was supposed to open by the end of the year. The only reason I say supposed to is because we haven't heard who the opening act would be yet. So my guess would be early 27, but stay tuned, it's gonna be fantastic. The Museum of Jersey History should have an exhibit highlighting the history of the Lowe's. Really, what I learned, what's amazing, I'll end on this, is how many city administrations wanted to demolish the Lowe's Theater over the years, which is outrageous given the historical significance of what it could be for our community. But if we 10 years from now, if you're able to look and sit in Journal Square, look around, people are walking safely, there's stores, restaurants, and green space and trees, planted, and we have the Lowe's and people able to enjoy that, and we know we built enough housing, then all this would be worth it. But the Lowe's is a huge part of everything we're gonna be doing for our community.
We should have kept White Castle. You know it.
You can buy it off the new owner.
Tom, what about the reservoir?
Thank you so much, Councilman, for joining us for these exciting updates to.
Updates on the reservoir, because it's, it's Journal Square, Journal Square, Journal Square.
You wanna make an announcement?
I'm in another part of Ward C, so what's going on with the reservoir here?
Yeah, Reservoir's fantastic. Get up there if you can.
No, but they
The
still,
city's working with the state on grant money to do the renovations up there.
what about the water? Because someone I spoke to in the city administration said the water is even more contaminated now than it was before. So what are they doing as far as trying to decontaminate that water?
I toured it with the caretaker up there. I'm not certain it's more contaminated. It is contaminated.
I spoke to Dawn.
That's who I'm referring to too.
Yeah, and she told me it was even more contaminated now, although people are still walking in there, are sneaking in there to fish.
Yeah, don't eat anything that comes in the
Because I'm
reservoir.
across the street, but I want to know what they're doing, because the buildings are still, not upgraded, and I'm line of sight. I'm directly across from this, so I look at this, and I feel sad because it could be better utilized for recreation if these buildings were upgraded or fixed. And it's been for years, and by the time they do that, I'll be dead
Well, God forbid,
at this point.
It was so uplifting to me. No, so the reservoir the city's working with the state on getting grants and fixing that up. We have a great partnership that we can talk about offline.
Okay.
Here you go, Margaret.
I just want to put in a last minute reminder concerning the program at the VIP for that Venturin facility. We've talked a lot today about our health and the cost of our health and our trees and our environment and the cost of how we don't have the money to keep up the trees or certainly to plant new ones. So this facility would have an adverse effect on our health and that of the environment, really the planet. So please seriously consider joining the VIP. The flyers are being put out in all languages, in Polish, Hindi, Tagalog, Mandarin, because we want to make sure that everybody who is affected, which is everybody in Jersey City and beyond, has an opportunity to get a serious overview about this from the State Environmental Protection Agency. They are the ones paying for the meals, so we're not incurring any additional costs on the city. And the film is about a neighboring facility that took place in the Ironbound District in Newark, so that you can see graphically and for real and hear from the people what it's really like. And again, this is the St. Paul's that's down the road here. It's that close. You must RSVP. The VIP only has a limited number of seats. It's been revamped, it's great, but it's still limited in order to have, accommodation, seating, and food. And also I want to give a shout out to the Bathroom Center, who has hosted one of these, and to the Borough Mansion. So it's a citywide kind of effort that's being made. It's very serious. Our seniors are being included. We're going out of our way to include them from the neighboring buildings. Again, you must RSVP. Thank you, and thank you, Mike, for coming down. It took 6 months to get Mike down here. He really was expecting a child, but decided now I was ready for early admission to Harvard, I think, yeah. But in any case, yes, just so that you know, the people in his department are not sitting around on overtime. I went there, they said, if you're not here by 7:30 in the morning, you missed him. And sure enough, I was on my way out, zoom, he was out there. So they are really inspecting the trees and doing a lot of work. Thank you for your good advice and the ideas about advocacy at the group level, neighborhoods, and maybe going to the schools and getting more awareness. So thank you Thank you definitely for that really in-depth view. That was a little scary, but definitely everybody that contributed with their information, Mia and Mary and Adam and everybody that had serious lived experience here. And so if everybody enjoyed the meeting, especially the people out there, please consider joining. These meetings are free to attend, except for the social and the summer and winter social. So please consider joining. You see the value of these meetings. It's good networking and it's just good for everybody. Thank you, Fritz. Thank you, ACC. Thank you, Veronica, who's here. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Just about thank hearing, there'll be a meeting August 20th, we think, with the next public hearing. So we got St. Anne's Church on St. Paul's Avenue.